بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه مباركا عليه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى جل جلاله وعم نواله والصلاة والسلام على سيد الحبيب المصطفى صلى الله تعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد والفرقان الحميد ولقد أرسلنا رسلا من قبلك وجعلنا لهم أزواجا وذرية صدق الله العظيم. What we want to do today, because we actually have a very short time. I mean, it might sound a lot. Was it 2 hours or something on a Sunday? I mean, it is a lot because you could be doing so many other things. So to come and sit in a masjid to talk about marriage, yeah, maybe it's worth it for some people. It's clearly worth it for those who are sitting here because unless you had nothing better to do or your wives threw you out or whatever the reason was. But alhamdulillah, we're here together. Allah Ta'ala make it useful and beneficial. And I want to try to make it as productive as possible. And the way I intend to do that is that I will speak about certain pertinent topics. They might sound a bit random and disjointed, but it's just because I want to try to make it relevant. I've got the breakdown of who signed up, it looks like, and the cross-section of the community. So I need to make this relevant. And the poster, that's what it was saying anyway, is that this is for people who are not yet married, those who are married, and those who are veterans in marriage. So what's the point of the veterans in marriage? Well, they might have gone beyond their time, but they can train their younger children, it might be, or their younger brothers or cousins or something in marriage. That's the benefit of it. It's to inspire discussion. And I think it's probably one of the most important topics after belief in Allah and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because this is really about relationship. If you can't have strong family units where the husband and wife are on the same page and know what marriage is all about, then the community suffers. Because disjointed family units, they create a problem within the community as such. It reverberates throughout. And it doesn't create a good place for the children to be reared in and to be nurtured in. So clearly this is a very, very important topic for the social fabric, for establishment of our communities and the stability of our communities. Then we can be stronger that way, have our children born in more stable environments and households, not punctured by discord and discord and disputes and possibly divorces and infidelity and all sorts of other crazy things that go on. So what I want to do is I want to speak about certain points that are relevant to all, inshallah, and then I want to just open it up to questions. Because in 2 hours, you cannot cover every aspect about marriage. In fact, every aspect of marriage is not even coverable because there's just so many localized issues in marriage, cultural issues in marriage, so many variants in marriage that no one book or a lecture can ever cover it all, because there's a lot of culture involved in marriage, good and bad. There's a lot of other personality issues that are involved in marriage. So I want to say today that I want to open it up to questions afterwards in the time that we have, and I want to say no taboo. There is you can ask any question you want. Let us make it like that you can ask literally any question related to marriage. Okay? Any question you want, however crazy it may seem. If we know the answer, we'll provide it. We have Mawla Ilyas Sahib here, Mufti Sahib here as well. If we don't have the answer, we'll just say we don't, because we can't know everything, right? So that's just very clear. So don't feel embarrassed about asking any questions. You can either ask the question, at least for the guys who are sitting here, you can ask the question openly if you feel like doing so. And if you don't want to ask openly and you want to keep it anonymous because you might have a private nature to it or something, fine, write it down and send it. All I request is write it in, I need detail. Don't ask me general question. What do you think about some general topic? I'm not here to give 1 hour bayans on all of those topics. So if you're going to ask about a specific question related to marriage, then you need to be, without taking names, you need to be specific about the incident, because there's so many variables, otherwise I can't answer the question. Okay? So try to be as specific as possible, just so I tell you from now, so I don't have to dismiss any question. And yeah, so with that, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make these 2 hours and thus the rest of our life, inshallah, very beneficial, productive, practical, full of blessing, full of love, and full of cohesion, unity, compromise, understanding, and sensitivity, compassion, and all the rest of it, inshallah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that we need it. So that's what we're going to start with, inshallah. So firstly, just to quickly take a survey of who's here. How many of you are not married? Okay, how many of you are married? Okay, so it's about 70-30, it seems. 70 married, 30 not married. With the sisters, I'm not sure, it probably reflects the same. Either way, it doesn't make it that much of a difference, because inshallah what I'm going to try to cover is from both sides. So firstly, we'll start off with the topic of how to prepare for marriage. Now those who are married, I think we've already been there and done that, yes, but this is relevant to those who are married in the sense that if we didn't prepare like this, do it now so that the rest of your marriage can be better. Because the problems, if we don't prepare for marriage, the problems that come about, they're probably plaguing marriages, right? So we can still enhance it. The wonderful thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us as human beings is the ability to change our character. Yes, sometimes some things are more difficult than other things, but the first aspect of that is acknowledgement of what our problem is, to recognize I've got this problem. A lot of the time people don't recognize their problem, and now they call it narcissism. That's the new word, right, that came out in the last 5-10 years. I mean, it's always been there, but it's on everybody's tongue. Everybody calls you, my husband's a narcissist, and like, how do you know? Right, like, how do you know he's a narcissist? And sometimes it becomes just a swear word just to critique somebody, right? But the problem with narcissism is that it's like compound ignorance, where you don't know that you don't know, or where you don't know that you have a problem because you think you're right all the time. Let's just get that out of the way. I haven't come across any person who is right all the time yet, and I'm looking for that person. In one bayan, there was one person who claimed it, but I think he was a bit majzoob. I think he was a bit in another world. I don't think he understood what I was saying, but I'm looking for somebody who's always right. I get calls sometimes, usually from women, but it could be the other way around. My husband's like this. I said, okay, do this. No, I tried that. Do this, I tried that. He doesn't listen. I said, talk to his dad. He doesn't listen to his dad. I said, talk to the local imam sahib or his sheikh. He doesn't listen to anyone. I said, how is he going to listen to me then? What magic do I have? What do you think I can do then? You know, if it's such a serious issue. So essentially, there are some people who think they're always right. Now look, if you're a professional or you're an expert on BMWs, a mechanic expert on BMWs, you usually know, you will be right most of the time, more than others who don't know, or more than general mechanics. You will probably know more about the BMW and probably mostly be right. But there will also be times when you're not right. Nobody can know everything. وَفَوْقَ كُلِّ ذِي عِلْمٍ عَلِيمٍ. So anybody who thinks they're always right, especially in a relationship, because relationships are born and fostered and nurtured and developed through mutual and complementary contributions. If one person is always leading the way, especially if they haven't, yes, if you're a veteran in marriage and you've just got married to, you're a 60-year-old guy, just got married to a 25-year-old who's never been married before, okay, you're going to have more experience. You know what you're doing. But if you're both 20-something and you just both got married, how can you know? Especially if you're not from a stable marriage, how do you know? It's like children when they think they know everything and the parents are telling them, I'm double your age, I've had the experience, I'm telling you, no, you don't know. But like, what do you tell them in their mind? Once my older children, who have like 8 to 10 years between the younger ones and the older ones, they're telling the younger one, you don't get it. This is how it is, you don't. And the one is protesting the younger one. So I told the older one, I said, it's the same thing. When I tell you stuff and you don't agree and you think it's all right and you have the experience, it's the same thing, but that's human nature. But by the time we become adults, we have to learn to open up to understanding. So that's essentially the issue. We have to teach how to prepare for marriage and how to enhance a marriage. Otherwise, it's just going to be constant problems. So, how do you prepare for marriage? What happens usually, preparation for marriage means that once you've identified the individual you're going to get married to, Then for the man, especially for the man, it's usually about preparing the room or the house or where they're going to stay, the honeymoon procedures and all of that kind of stuff, right? And then the whole focus goes on the 2 or 3 days or a week, however long your marriage ceremonies are going to take place. The longer you make it, the more headache you have, right? I'll let you know that as well. But if you want to do a 2-week marriage, fine, just going to get more headache, right? But the main thing is that's where all of your preparation goes. What am I going to wear? What are we going to cook? And one of the most difficult ones is who we're going to invite and who we're not going to invite, right? Where we're going to hold it. Is there available bookings and so on and so forth. And then if you want to make it more complicated, what do we expect everybody else to wear and add a layer of pressure and force on other people that you must wear green or you must wear this and that. Ya Allah, my son just got married and we just made it very easy. My wife told all her sisters and I told, you can wear what you want. As long as you're decent, just come, right? We don't have to, it's just all added layers. You can do it if you want to. But can you see all of that focus, how much brain power, how much resources, and the longer your engagement is, that's how many more weekends that you have to shop for. The fastest weddings are in 2 weeks, chalo, get everything done. This one, you do this lafro and that thing and this thing, it just makes it worse. Where'd you guys go shopping for marriage? For your wedding stuff? Preston, where'd you guys go? Blackburn? You don't go anywhere. I need some answers, man.
Manchester. That was 37 years ago.
Right, no. Where'd you go now? Where do people go? Birmingham? Is that the place? Or you go Dubai? Or India, Pakistan? You go Manchester, is that where it is? And Birmingham, okay. Is it online now? Yeah. So that's preparation for marriage, right? Hardly anybody's preparing for the day after. When you're going to be living as two independent human beings with their own mindsets. People have evolved. Evolution is true. This evolution anyway. 50 years ago, if you're getting married to a woman, that woman knew exactly what she was in for. She was going to get married. All she had to she already knew in the village what that house looked like and who the in-laws were and everything. She just had to come. She had to be the wife. She had to make samosas and papar and all of that with the extended family, do some panchat, right? And all of that. Spend the day, bring up the children, cook and clean. And that was her job. There was no career. You might have, work out in the family farm or business or kheti or whatever it is, but that's it. That's all there was. Now there's a layer that men are being educated and women are being educated and they have careers. So it's become a lot more complex that, okay, do you want to have children straight away? And that's a question now. Before that was obvious. That is where we're getting married. Everybody's going to want children. You don't want children. Everybody's going to ask you every day, what's going on? You're not trying enough. Now people get offended that people are asking me. And I don't blame them if they can't have children. They're trying and they can't have children and people are constantly, but I can understand that. You understand? It's become a lot more complex in that sense. How are you going to deal with that? How are you dealing with another independent human being that have their own ideas? They're also not from the same villages a lot of the time. In fact, completely different cultures sometimes, which is fine, but it adds all these additional challenges, different celebrations, different habits, different customs. How are you going to deal with all of that? And then there's just personality, individual personality. Who prepares for all of that? Okay, so we're going to quickly talk about preparation. But when I say preparation, for those who are married, it means enhancement. So just read it as enhancement, okay? That means that we're going to discuss just very quickly how to approach this of how do you prepare for marriage. So what we're going to look at first is what are some of the big stumbling blocks in marriage that cause problem between two, that are relationship destroyers. What would you say? Give me a few and we'll start with some of them. In-laws, okay, chalo, one is in-laws, right? Because I think in-laws are an issue, but there's something personal. I mean, if you just look at, if we forget the in-laws for it, that is definitely an issue though, right, sometimes. But just personality-wise, what are the issues? Anger. Anger's a really big one. What else?
Responsibility.
Responsibility means that are you good at taking on responsibility or not?
No, more so as in like roles, the roles that you play within the house, especially with the saying.
Right, okay, that's a good point. So keep that point. Okay, that's 2. What else?
Habits.
Yeah, but which habits? Anger, which habits?
Smoking.
Okay. Let's go into more essential stuff. So one is anger.
How you spend time.
How do you spend time?
Out.
Right, so you see there's a lot of issues. So if we break that down and take it back down to the absolute basics of human behavior, so it's this. This is something very interesting. Allah has created every human being, every single human being with 2 sets of things. One is a set of qualities by which we go through this life, earn our living, deal with one another, that makes us unique in the positive sense. We all have qualities. Every single one. Capabilities, abilities, some form of qabiliyah, as we say, potential to do something. Yes, there are losers in the world. Only reason they're losers is because they just have not been able to discover, or they've discovered they don't want to use it, they've been sidetracked. Otherwise, most people are people who do things with their capability. Everybody's got a capability here. Anybody without a capability here? Don't be embarrassed, tell me if you... Okay, I assume everybody has a capability. Good. Most people recognize their capabilities. They get a job with it. They do things with it. Some people are good with their hands. Some people are good with their mind. Some people are good with their emotion. Right? Some people are good physically. You know, there's just various ways Allah has made different people. Some people want to do university degrees. Some people want to do apprenticeships. Some people just want to break and make things. It's fine. Okay, every single human being, along with that, has a package of challenges and weaknesses, defects you can say, shortcomings. Right? I'm going to ask you guys to think of 3 of our weaknesses. Individually, don't look at anybody else. What's my 3 weaknesses? And if you don't have one, just put your hand up.
You're not listening. Listening sometimes.
G?
Listening. Sometimes.
No, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. We don't have that much time today, unfortunately, to do like a proper workshop. But at least think about it, because a lot of us have never thought about their weaknesses. We know we have them because we stumble with them, but we've never acknowledged that it's my weakness. You understand what I'm saying? For example, just recently somebody came, she's ready to get married, and she realizes that, and people around her knew that, but she finally realized at the age of 23, 24, 25, whatever the age is, I can't remember, that she's got an anger problem. Okay, what kind of anger problem? People have anger problems. But her anger problem is that if she gets angry with something, it lasts for 24, 36 hours. Everybody knew she's got that issue, but she's finally recognized it and wants to get rid of it. Now something's going to happen. But it took 23, whatever number of years to finally get to that point. Which is, alhamdulillah, it's there, right, before she's married. So I don't think she's married yet. So she's finally got to that realization. But until now, she had the issue, but she would never, you can say, acknowledge it and do something about it. Now she's asking for help. She wants to see a counselor. So one of those issues, so that's where we all have weakness. Now, simple issue. Every child, I think we need to tell this. Our maktabs, our asatiza, this is what we need to tell our child. Our parents need to literally identify in our children what their qualities are. And then get them to understand it and thank Allah for them and use them. And to understand their weaknesses as weaknesses and try to sort it out. So for example, you got a set of brothers and sisters. Let's just say three or four brothers and sisters, same parents, same food, same nurture, same madrasa, everything's the same. But have you noticed? Just compare ourselves with our own brothers and sisters. One of them will be a bit sharper. One of them will be a bit more generous. One of them will be a bit stingier. One of them will get angry quicker. One of them gets ready 10 minutes before the time. And there's another one who gets ready 5 minutes after the time always. Right? And everybody's waiting for that one. Anyone like that? Right? There's some who just about get ready on time. Yeah, everybody's different. Halaki, they're just brothers and sisters, right? So Allah gives everybody a set of qualities, a set of weaknesses. We're supposed to use the qualities to lead the life and do something with it, and we're supposed to understand our weaknesses, not let it disable us, debilitate us, incapacitate us, and make us stumble. So most people in the world will eventually figure out their capabilities, but they don't recognize their, what do you call them? Challenges. And then when you have close relationships, that's where they usually bring up. Simple way to test. You know, when we're out as friends, am I the one who gets more angry, who gets more riled up, or who gets more sensitive and starts crying? These are the things you have to think. If we are, then let's do something about it. Let's recognize it's an issue. No problem. If you recognize it, you can do something about it. If you don't recognize it, keep dismissing it, it's a problem. So now let's take some. There's so many, but let's take a few just so that we can teach ourselves how to think. For those who are not married yet, get those things identified and sorted out to the best of your ability, and you'll thank this discussion for that. And if you're already married, then you will know that it's already causing problems. It's creating abrasiveness, or it's causing absolute discord. I don't understand why they created, somebody was doing some work for me, he says, have you got Discord? It's like, I don't have Discord. What's Discord? I kind of had heard of it. He goes, you need to download Discord. Otherwise I can't send you, these AI related stuff. I said, okay, I'll download Discord. What a name, man. Discord chaos, right? But anyway, that's Discord. So let's take an example of anger. Anger is a big one. How many people here have an issue with anger? Like their own problem? I'm going to put my hand up, right? Alhamdulillah, I think my wife has helped to sort me out quite a bit, right? I was much worse before. Allah Ta'ala help us all, right? Was I angry in class? No? Sure? Okay. So anyway, anger. What does anger do? Anger is fire. Anger is from the shaitan. Shaitan is made of fire. Anger is indiscriminate. When you're angry, you don't know what you're doing. Just like fire, unless it's controlled, it's very difficult to control fire. It can go anywhere, right? It has a mind of its own. Jinn, from fire, they're very volatile. That's the problem with anger. Too much anger, it's an issue. And look, as I said, Allah created us. Those of us with anger, Allah created us like that. So don't feel bad about that. What am I like? Allah, why do you... But He's given us the tools, كَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ, to control it. Otherwise, you're going to have problems in your marriage. And if you're already married, you're probably already having issues in marriage. There are going to be issues. Anger is a major issue. Okay, what do you do about it? Well, number one, what benefited me was I had to give a series of lectures on different akhlaq traits. And Imam Ghazali and Maulana Hakim al-Maulana Ashrafi Thanwi, their works have helped me a lot in dealing with anger. Because they're kind of more social psychologists. They've dealt with this there's a lot of Quran, Hadith, they weave them together and explain it. And I would suggest that if anybody has an anger problem and they can't deal with it, take an anger management course. Do it privately. You don't have to tell anybody about this. Do it for yourself and for your future and for the people around you. Do it privately, online. You don't have to tell anyone. What you learn is what triggers you. You learn the whole chemical reaction of the body. So essentially, when you get angry, what happens is there's a release of, anybody know? What is the release of a chemical? Is it cortisol? No, it's not cortisol. There's a particular chemical that's released. You know how long that chemical flushes through the body when you're angry? 90 seconds, maximum. 90 seconds. So it courses through your body and you get a bit. Right. Then what happens is it recedes. But some people have not learnt to calm down. So they keep bringing it on. In fact, let's just say something happened Friday night with your spouse or friend. Is it cortisol? Okay, right? I thought it was something else. No, whatever it is. G? There's adrenaline as well, that's for sure. It's one of those two, right? It may be both, right? So now what happens is, it happened Friday night. Now, if you're one who likes to keep things in, and what you'll do is, it becomes like Netflix. On demand, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and however long your membership lasts, right? You'll keep bringing it up so that you cause the release it again and you get angry. You're just wasting your time. And You know, things are gonna get us angry. There will be things that get us angry, but we just need to learn to control them. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about just anger. It's just the point. Get help. Recognize, acknowledge, get help. And believe me, it won't go away all of a sudden because you've had your whole life of getting angry quickly, right? On the edge all the time. But eventually you will calm down. You'll see triggers. You'll preempt things. You'll learn how to calm down. You'll recognize ourselves. It's just so easy. This is akhlaq. This is essentially what it is. Okay, number 2. Another one that's a big one is kind of related is sensitivity. Right? And then you're emotional and you start crying quickly. And then that leads to like, I'm not going to talk to you. Or you don't even tell them that, you just don't talk. For like 2 days. Okay? Who's got sensitivity issues? Okay, 2 people, 3 people. I mean, it's not to tell anybody else. I don't want anybody to look at it. It's just for us to recognize. Some of these things are more in women, some are more in men, right? So I can't see the women, but I'm assuming there should be some hands up there for sure. It better be, as there were here as well. Now, what is sensitivity? Sensitivity is multiple things. It's a bit hot. Is there some windows? Or can we have some windows open? Of course, there's some windows. Yeah. Jazakallah. If you guys get cold, just let me know. I'm doing the talking, so that's why I'm getting excited here. Right? You're not going to get cold? Okay. So, sensitivity. I know a guy who got married, a woman, she got married, and she knew that the husband's family had certain challenges. She was still willing to go and do khidmat, no problem. She got married. Her mother-in-law though, she's living with the mother-in-law, she gives her the silent treatment every few days for 2 days. So how long is that? How many days is that in a month? Like half the month maybe. So anytime some little thing happens, no talking for 2 days, you have to wait for that expiry period and then go on eggshells and, Ya Allah, how can you live like that? The husband understood, okay, you know, this isn't going to work. So alhamdulillah, he found another house. And in Preston, you could probably even do that. In London, you can't even do that. You can't even get another house, you know. So expensive. Alhamdulillah, they're fine now. Sensitivity is a massive issue. La ilaha illallah. Allah has given them a quality, but it's also a weakness at the same time if you use it wrong. There are people who will 27th night, they're trying to cry. They can't cry all night. They see everybody else crying, they can't cry. And mashallah, these people, they're crying for free. Little something happens and they start crying. Ajib, they start crying for free. So what we're going to suggest is I try to do some research. What should we do about this? So one suggestion I got, which is very wonderful, is that anybody who has these emotional sensitivity issues, then of course they can get professional help. It could be some trauma from before, for sure. It could be some issue of feeling let down and lots of other deprivation. One thing, if you can do this, inshallah, Allah will help you, is get a translation of the Quran. And just start reading it every day. Especially when you feel teary, then just go and grab the Quran translation and start reading 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. You will find, get into it, and you will find so many things to cry about. Out of happiness or out of fear of Allah or out of reverence or whatever it is, and you'll be challenging that emotion, that raw emotion that you have based on whatever happened. You'll challenge it in the right way and you'll develop yourself. So get a translation of the Quran and start doing that, and you'll see that inshallah will benefit. Number 2, you can't always grab a Quran, right? And maybe it's on your phone, but you're not in that position to do so. When you feel teary like that, don't cry for free. Put your hand out to Allah and cry to Allah. Make it a dua. Make it an invocation to Allah. That way, your tears will be valuable rather than the ones you've all wasted. One theory, I think it's a fact in some cases, that for some people, their crying and emotion sensitivity problem, whenever they have a little issue, is they haven't, that part of the brain, and look, I don't say this to criticize, I say this just to kind of diagnose. What they've said, what psychologists have said, is they have not grown up when they were 2, 3 or 4 years old. that part of them. What does that mean? Right? They're obviously physical adults. If you got a little girl and her older brother, 2 years older, grabs her toy and takes it, or her sweets, what does that girl do? Usually, she's going to cry. Why does she cry? What's her purpose of crying? What does she get out of crying? What does crying do?
Attention.
It gets attention, so the mum will come and, and tell somebody off and comfort her. They're looking for comfort. Rather than learning to deal with it, they just haven't grown up. They're thinking their mum's still going to come. So they're always looking for someone, but your mum can't be with you all the time. Your father can't be with you all the time, right? So you just not learned to grow up from there, that part of the brain. Because, I give you an example. One day my kid, who was about 7 or 8 at the time, came back from school. And I was hearing him talking to my wife, his mum. And he said, they were talking about some friend of his, some guy in his class. He says, I'm not talking to him. I heard, I was like, where did you learn to stop talking to someone from? We don't do that in the family. We just say what we have to say and it's done. Like just, as they say, khulasa kari lakho. Like just sort it out and carry on. What is this that you keep it inside and you keep burning and emotional and just, I was like, where did you learn that from? So obviously he must have learned it from a friend who did that to him. So he thinks that's something that he needs to do. It's a cool thing to do. I'm not talking to you. That's how we prepare our children to deal with the realities of life and not to let them succumb to these things, because our children and us, we pick up things from all over the place. So let us read the Quran with translation or do dua and channel that emotion. Inshallah, Allah will help us. Otherwise, relationship can't deal with it. It's causing problems in relationships. Okay, let's move on to another one. Number 3. What else should we talk about? Stinginess. Is that a good one? Anybody got a stinginess problem? Again, Allah may have created, how many of you can, would share their last sweet? That was good. Willing to share their last sweet. If somebody wanted it.
It all depends on his asking.
Okay. Some kids, you ask them, give me a sweet, and it's their last sweet, they'll still give it to you. And some kids, they won't even give you, even if it's a full bag of sweets. Allah creates people with different things. Again, if we're stingy by nature, no problem. But if it causes us to withhold zakat, or withhold sadaqah when it's really needed, or everybody's giving your children Eidi. You know what? Everybody knows what Eidi is, right? They just say Eidi, right? But Eidi, that's what it is. And you don't give it to anybody, you say, brother, this is bid'ah. The Prophet ﷺ didn't give Eidi, but this is bid'ah. You don't give it to anyone. People send food to your house, you don't let your wife send, or the wife doesn't send, she doesn't cook and send to anybody else. You go with your friends to a restaurant to eat. What's a good place to eat? Would you have to go to Blackburn for that? Yeah? What's a good place? What's trending right now here? What's a good place to eat? Or is that difference of opinion? Yeah, or is that some Bukhara or something I keep hearing? Is that a good place? You go to Bukhara to eat. You finish eating, and then the bill is coming, so you go to wash your hands. Have you heard of that? Are you Pashto Poige? Are you Pathan? What are you? You're Palestini. Oh, mashallah. So when the bill comes, you go to wash your hands, because you need clean hands to take the bill. Somebody else will be paid by then, right? I'm not giving ideas, by the way. That's not an idea. Right? So, what happens then is, look, simple thing. If in a good Muslim marriage, in a healthy Muslim marriage, if the wife is stingy, wonderful. No problem with that. Then you won't have a problem of overspending. She's going to be stingy, so there's not going to be much spending going on, is it? Right? So that works. But if the husband is stingy, you've got a big problem. If the man is stingy, you've got a big problem. And there's so many marriages that have problems because of stinginess. The one place where the Prophet ﷺ told a woman you can take from her husband without telling him is when she wouldn't get her expenses from her husband, despite him having. Abu Sufyan and Hind radiallahu anhum. They said, you can take. Before any woman acts on this, consult with a scholar, say, this is my situation, this is how much he doesn't give me, and then if they say you can take, then otherwise you might be a spendthrift and he doesn't give you. I know there are some men who ask for itemized bills at the end of each month for where they spent. Anybody does that? I mean, sometimes it might be needed, so you can let me know. No? Nobody does that. One woman called me once and she said, my husband is just very, very, very stingy. They say that sometimes. I said, explain. I said, yeah, our furniture is just about surviving. The doors, they're like just about to fall off and all that kind of stuff. I said, sometimes people exaggerate. I talked to the husband. He said, it works. Like, it works. It does its job type of thing, right? It's not like he was not making money, but he just wasn't willing to spend on there, right? And then another issue was, and I said, I have to do something here. So she wanted organic milk. She got into the whole health thing and said, I need organic milk. But the husband's not going to pay, 70, 80 pence extra for an organic milk compared to normal milk. Like, what's wrong with normal milk? They'll say, it looks the same, tastes the same, right? So I told him, I said, let's do some hisab. I said, how much milk do you guys use a week? He said, this much. So we made a hisab. In a year, it wasn't going to be more than 70 to 100 pounds. I said, please, man, just do it, man. Like, come on, just do something. I'm not sure about the furniture yet, but at least start with the milk. It's a sadaqah to spend on your family. Do you know that? If I spend on my family, my wife and my children, I get reward for that, unless I'm overspending or doing israf, if I'm being extravagant. I get rewarded. It's a sadaqah to spend on your own family. Allah has made it, incentivized it. It's very important to do that. We also have problems overspending where people just try to indulge them and without really giving them much other attention. And so on. That's a problem as well. Anything too much of is a problem anyway. So stinginess is a major issue. The mas'ala here, I'm going to explain the mas'ala. I'll explain a few mas'alas as we go through, and the fiqh of it is very interesting. If my son or daughter has their own money, for example, lots of Eid money, inheritance money or gifts or whatever, and they've got like a few £1,000, I can literally charge them for everything in the house that they use. I can charge him for the food that he eats in the house. I could maybe, nobody does that, but I could probably even charge him for a rent for the bed that he uses. It would be halal. It'd be a bit crazy, but it'd be halal, right? Because the mas'ala is that if children have their own money, you can actually spend from that first, if you want to, without having to spend your own money. Parents are only, fathers are only obligated to top up, or if they don't have, then to spend on them. Otherwise, it comes from the child's money first. That makes mas'ala very easy, that if you're very, very protectively looking after your child benefits, you can use it. Number one, child benefit, it's called child benefit for parents with families, but it's given to the parent and it's not for the child. It's for the family as a whole. So unless you're actually depriving your children and making them suffer and you're enjoying yourself, that would be wrong, of course, anyway. But otherwise, that money is not the children's. They used to give money to the children in those trust funds. That was for the child. Child benefit, a lot of like, I don't want to spend this child benefit, it might be haram to. No, you can spend it all day long. You're spending on your children anyway. You don't even have to keep a hisab for that. It's actually given to the mother. And Barbara Castle from Blackburn, she's one of the first to kind of institute that. There's a whole history. We've written a whole fatwa of that on our fatwa center, if you want to read that in detail, right? So that might make life a bit easier for you, right? Yes, if you choose to keep the money, you just don't need to use it, so keep it for your children, you can do that. But it doesn't belong to your children. It belongs to you as a family to use, okay? Sometimes there's a problem with husbands keeping it all and not giving it to the wife, and a wife keeps it all, husband, it's for both of you, right? Anyway, however, if your wife is a millionaire and you're just working class, you are, as a man, are still obligated to pay her clothing, for her boarding, house, lodging, and for her food. Do you know that? Even if she's a millionaire, she doesn't have to spend a penny. Yes, if there's anything beyond that into luxury items, you go ahead and you buy that extra plush sofa, you take us on holiday, you can do all of that. But otherwise, we as men are obliged. Okay, there's some new masail coming up because sometimes the women are making more money or they insist on working and so on. That's a different masala. This is the thing. The man is قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. That is a man's responsibility. He has to pay for that. She doesn't have to spend a penny on the basics. Okay, how much do you have to spend? So the masala here, again, another masala I'm going to mention is, because this causes issue, what do you have to buy for your wife as men in terms of clothing, lodging, what kind of facilities do you have to provide, or standard you could say, and likewise in food. It is halfway the average between your and her family's normal custom. So if you get a wife, for the men, right, who usually got their clothing from Asda, George, and Primark, then that would be enough. And she's insisting, no, I want to shop at Selfridges. I won't accept any less. You're not obliged. That's where it came, that's the standard. However, if you get a wife who is used to spending from I don't want to mention next, but because that's kind of boycott right now. But where? Come on, give me some good names, man. From Selfridges, from Harrods, Zara, Zara, or mashallah, they're going to then designers like it has to be Louis Vuitton all the way, or Cartier, or whatever you want to get to that level. Then you're going to have to get up to that level to spend on, unless they say, no, that's not what I want. If you're going to have an elephant as a pet, instead of like a budgie or something, then you're going to need the food. Like people buy 3-liter cars, 4-liter engines, like petrol is too expensive. So why do you buy a 4-liter for? You understand what I'm saying? There's no problem with it. It's not a problem with that. It's just that why did you do that? That's the mas'ala. It's the average between your statuses. Likewise, a lot of people, they ask the question, what is the rights of marriage? In my whole book on healthy Muslim marriage, I don't discuss that because if you reduce that to what are the rights of marriage, it's like saying, what are the fara'id of salat? Anybody quickly repeat to me from our Quwwatul Islam Maktab, how many fara'id in salat? Jalli man. Or you guys not from Quwwatul Islam? No, just fard. Just obligatory. Gives me time to drink some water. Yeah.
5 or 6.
G? Yeah, 6 or 7 as you say, right? It's not even something on your radar because who focuses just on that? It's basically takbir, qiyam, standing for a short while, a bit of qira'ah, which means reading maybe just Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen or just Yasin wal Quran al Hakim. That would fulfill the obligation. Going into ruku, reading nothing, just in there for like a second. That's ruku, sujood, and then sitting in the last sitting for as long as it takes to read the tahiyyat without even reading tahiyyat. That's the fard. Salam is not even fard. That's one is wajib, the other one is sunnah. What would that salat look like if that's all you're focused on? What would that look like? You understand what I'm saying? It just doesn't look like anything. Even if you add the wajibat, it's still not enough. The sunnah and everything is what makes it beautiful. So the obligations of marriage are literally just that if there's a massive argument, what's the basic that you must do for one to maintain, and otherwise you'd be sinful, it's that. That's all it's for. And a lot of people call, Sheikh, can you just tell us the obligations of marriage? Of course, you better be fulfilling them. So I'll tell you what the obligations of marriage are. They're very simple. They're very simple. From the man's perspective, it is the 3 that I mentioned. Providing an average decent home, somewhere to live in that is independent of anybody else. So you actually can't force your wife to live with your parents if they don't want to. What does that mean though? If property is expensive and you can't actually find a separate place, you can actually have a self-catering apartment within a larger house. As long as privacy is maintained, since nobody can come in there, that would be enough. For her to get a room, a place to cook, a studio apartment, if that's all you need, for example, and toilet facilities, as long as nobody can just walk in there. That's the only obligation. Of course, you don't just do obligations, you try to make it work and practical and useful and beneficial because you want a relationship, right? That's all the obligation is. Of course, if you can't do that in the same house, you'll have to do it somewhere else, but that is an obligation. Of course, if she says, no, I don't, I'm okay, because women should do khidmah. Men should do khidmah. Everybody should do khidmah of their in-laws, right? We have problems with the husband never doing any khidmah for his father-in-law. It's like the wife has to serve his mum, but he never serves his father-in-law, doesn't ever take him to an appointment, even though he can, he's just sitting there, right? So it needs to be from both sides, equal actually. I know traditionally and customarily, the woman is supposed to do for her in-laws because she usually moves over to the husband's side, and that she gets that opportunity more, but otherwise it's exactly the same. It's just circumstances are different, right? So he has to provide that, he has to provide the food, and he has to provide the clothing. Okay? That's it. That's all the obligation is. In fact, if you look in our books of fiqh, they say about medicine, he doesn't have to provide her medicine. He doesn't have to pay for her medicine. Because the custom at that time was not. Today, I would say medicine is necessary as well. Mobile phone, is that necessary? To provide a mobile phone? Yeah. Right. Okay, we'll discuss that later. Okay, what's the wife's obligation then? Like the fard, the absolute fard, right? Simple. To be literally available for him as long as the health allows. I'm going to clarify that. Anytime that he wants to have intimacy, right? Anytime, she should be willing to drop everything for that. And the reasons for that are quite obvious, that man has a high sexual drive, and if she's not available for him, he's going to look elsewhere and so on, especially now in the hypersexualized world and so on. However, that doesn't mean that it makes it a one-sided thing. We can discuss that later. Okay? But that's one thing. And number two is to protect his assets, because the assumption is that he's going to be out working and she has to not allow anybody to come into his property, etc., including our own parents, right? And basically look after his assets. That's the only obligation. Some people are worried about their dar chawal. What about that? Or their kari khichdi or biryani. What happens with that then? So is that an obligation? Is that a fard? Or not? It's not. Man, you're not going to get your DC, man. Your dar chawal, what's going to happen then? Okay, so that one is interesting. Listen carefully. Before some husbands get upset and some wives get excited, right? If the man gets a wife from a family who cook their own food, then she is obligated to cook in the house between her and Allah. She will be sinful if she doesn't. She will be blameworthy, let's put it that way. It is what they call a diyana. I mean, I don't want to get into the technicality of it. It's not something you can take somebody to court for in an Islamic, but between her and Allah, it is a responsibility. Which means that if you get a wife from a family that doesn't cook, they have servants, they have maids, they have cooks, then she's not obligated to cook. So choose wisely. She's not obligated, doesn't mean she doesn't. Okay, what about a new issue now? What about if they're just in their family is always eating out or ordering Uber? They're like Uber, like Uber, or whatever you call it, Uber Foods. What is it called? Uber Eats. And they never cook, they just Uber eat all the time. What about that? What are you going to do with that? What about if the wife's from that family? How are you going to deal with it?
Actually the same. It's the same Islamic service.
Exactly. I mean, in this country, we do have servants, but they're all mechanicized servants.
Services.
We have washing machines. Otherwise, they used to have to beat the cloth at the lake. I've seen it. They used to break my buttons in India when I was studying there. Your kafni kurta comes back with broken buttons because they battered it, right? The washerwoman, right? So you have ovens, you have mixers, you even have roti-matic, right, and stuff like that. You understand what I'm saying? You know where we're going with this? But anyway, that's a separate point. But the main thing is that yes, it's an obligation. Cleaning the house, same thing. If they clean the house at a parent's house, she would be obligated to do that between her and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, the husband has to do whatever their family is. So pick carefully what kind of family you get into. So that's a bit of masail that I just wanted to mention to get it out of the way so that people don't get confused about this. Okay, a few other things and then we'll talk about a few other things. So another thing was, so that was, I think, stinginess. And then we talked about a lot of other things. And then, okay, another one is being too much into your own family. Once you get married, you have to decrease that. You can't maintain the same connection with your friends, with your hobbies, with your entertainment, and with your family. You have to invest in this new family. So you can't, especially if you're close by marriages, you can't just be at your parents' house all day and just kind of rush in and scramble a few eggs before he comes home. Unless he enjoys that, right? There is a girl, I was talking to a woman, she's like, I don't need to learn how to cook. I've got one friend, her mother-in-law cooks. Another one whose husband enjoys cooking. And she said something, I said, what chance is it that you're going to get something like this? And what a weird way to think. I'm not picking on women, but I get all of these profiles. You see, she's wonderful at, I enjoy baking. MashaAllah. But what about cooking? You're just going to eat bakery stuff all day? I tell my daughter, you have to learn how to cook. And I tell all women, learn how to cook 10 of your traditional dishes before you get married. 10 of them. That includes what? Dal chawal, curry, khichdi, biryani, what else? Yeah, whatever. At least 10 things, then do all the baking you want. But it's like everybody's copying all of these, online social media baking, but there's no cooking. Cook, man. Essential of life. Do you think it's necessary for women to know how to make roti? In Pakistanis, definitely. In Gujaratis, it's okay. They're willing to eat frozen rotis that are warmed up. But Pakistanis, no, man. They have to have fresh roti. I sometimes feel sorry for it, man, because they have to be in the kitchen making the roti hot and serving as... Right? In my house, from last 25 years, I felt it was so bad for women to eat at 9 o'clock when there was a dawat, when they fed all the guys, the guys eat, and then they clean everything up, and then they sit to eat at 9 o'clock. I was like, no, we get double the dishes, we're both going to sit to eat at once, in different rooms, but at once. Right, because that's not right. Where things are not right, it's not right. You understand what I'm saying? They should be able to eat. They're hungry as well. They've cooked all day. Unless you say that they should be fine with just smelling the food because they've cooked all day. You understand what I'm saying? There's just some cultural aspects of ours which I think don't go very well. So, where did this come from? What was the point? Yes, being too much. You have to start focusing on this and make it work. There was one mother, she was remote controlling her daughter's marriage, as some mothers do sometimes. There's another woman I dealt with their case, she was literally giving a standing commentary of her issues to a group of friends on a WhatsApp. I mean, there's enough stuff on Netflix that you can, or Pakistani drama. Pakistanis have drama, right? I'm not saying you should look at that kind of stuff, but we don't need another drama. Sort it out. So one day the mother, and I mentioned this in my book as well, this particular point. The mother said to her daughter, from now on, I don't want you to tell me anything. I want you to deal with it. The daughter felt very bad. Alhamdulillah, after a few months, she realized the wisdom. Then her mother said, look, your relationship with your husband is very unique. It's different from my relationship with my husband. I can't analogize that one on this one and make you do things. That was wrong. And that's very important sometimes. And sometimes our mothers and fathers are the most biased people out of their love. So it's not always the best person to go to, but if you have to go to somebody, make sure you go. In the last 2-3 years, I've dealt with over 20-year-old marriages, which are now on the brink of collapse, or they are collapsed. They've been collapsed for a long time. But finally, they're willing to now just let it go and finish it off. Why? Because they did not get help in time. So my advice is, get help sooner than later. Get help sooner than later. And a simple reason for this is, I'll explain to you visually. Sisters won't be able to see, but I'll try to explain it. When you get married, you're both on the same level. Same surface, you could say. In fact, you're probably flying very high, both on the same level, right? You have a little issue. It's like you go slightly into the ground, right? If you don't resolve it and get out, you can't be on the same level again, on the flat surface again. Now imagine everybody's going to have issues. There's no family that doesn't have issues. The Prophet ﷺ had issues with his wives. And one day, he actually went away for 29 days into a loft from all of his wives. There was some expense-related issue. Ali radiallahu anhu with Fatima radiallahu anha, one day he had an issue. The Prophet ﷺ went to visit him and he said, Fatima said, we had an issue, he's in the masjid. Yeah, so everybody has issues because you can have issues. It's just you have to learn how to deal with them. Right? So, what was the point before this? Sorry? Too much? No, after that. Yeah, same level. So we're still like, so now if you have an issue, you've gone down a centimeter into the ground. Now, there's going to be issues. You have to learn to just deal with a lot of issues and they get resolved. But if there's an issue that doesn't get resolved because there's some major clash on an issue, sometimes what you'll do is just to let it go, you'll just let it go, but it'll bother you inside. It's not being sorted out. So if it's something that's keeping you up at night, it's a major issue, get help. If you can't do it in-house, try your best to do it in-house first. What happened now is you're 1 centimeter into the ground, but you still can see one another, you're still dealing with one another, right? Now you have another issue. Remember, you're already 1 centimeter in, you're going to be 2 centimeters in. Okay, if you sort that out, and not the first one, you'll come back out 1 centimeter, you'll only be 1 centimeter. But as these grows, they will only grow and you'll get deeper and deeper and deeper until finally all you can do is just see one another because your heads are out. You're not even sleeping in the same room anymore. I've literally followed marriages like this. In the last 7 to 10 years, there's men or women, mostly women, called and they said, we got this issue. 7 years. I said, look, you need to take this stance. No, I'm too scared to do it. I get a call 2 years later, it's only worse now. And again, it's only worse. And then it's like, we're not even sleeping together now. How long? Last 2 years. I said, you need to take a stance. The same things are not going to work. He knows you too well, you know him too well. Your fake threats don't help. You're going to have to do something. Otherwise, it's only going to get worse. You know, you've got the experience. That's how, what people are doing is they're looking for a miracle. This is what people do. So literally my job or counselor's job is, listen, there's no miracle going to happen. They're calling you and they've tried everything, nothing's worked. So I said, well, how do you expect me to help you? I don't have magic, can't do magic. You're going to have to do something completely radical and different. Yes, it's a gamble. You might lose everything. But are you willing to take that? Or otherwise, just be satisfied and do sabr with what you have. But if this is bothering you so much, it's messing you up mentally, right? And you're close to suicide, as some people are sometimes, then do something because you already know what your current status for the last 20 years is going to bring you. It's not going to be any different. Keep that in mind. You have to do something different. Same thing doesn't work. So eventually you dig so deep. I'm dealing with one marriage, they've been now separate for 3 years. They just can't, because there's too many issues to resolve. It's not one issue. They build up, they compound. Then it's so difficult to get everybody back out to the surface level again and start seeing them for who they are. It's very difficult. So don't let it get to that far. Everybody will know where they are, okay? Okay, a few more things, very simple. If you, the other one would be addiction. That would be a major issue. That messes up marriages. Addiction to whatever it is, whether that be football, if that's an addiction, whether that be playing or watching. You come home and you just want to watch football for 3 hours, right? That's an issue. You want to be out with your friends. She's cooked. She's waiting with the dinner and then she falls asleep there because you're coming at 12:30 at night and you've already eaten out with your friends. She's waiting in bed for you already and the guy is on the laptop in the other room or on his phone or whatever it is, right? Just stuff like that. Just really stuff like that. And it's complaints from both sides. I've had a really dignified individual from one community call me and said, my wife's always on her WhatsApp. So it's not just men. It's not that she may be doing anything haram, just a big waste of time, you know. Just addictions like that. These all are, and I'm going to say, you know, for our studious, tahqiqi mizaj ulama, for you to neglect your family, for us to neglect our family and be with our kitabs 24/7, that is also not right. I'm telling you because that's my experience, right? If I feel that I'm doing something wonderful, I'm doing some new tahqiq of a book and something, I'm neglecting my family, God forbid. Allah forgive us. You understand what it is? Anything can become an issue. You're going to cause a problem in your marriage. Not to say you give up your books, right? But, come on. So everything's an issue. So let's enhance our marriages. Okay. Another thing is, how many of you guys have a love bank balance? An account, a love bank account, a love bank balance. Anybody here? You have those accounts in Preston? Nobody. Anybody got Monzo? Okay. Starling? Yeah? So what about love bank balance? You never seen it? You never checked it out? Okay. वसीम साहब अमेरिका में ऐसा होता है love bank balance? Yeah? Okay. What a love bank balance is, when I talked about the customary expectations of marriage, right? You're doing those customary expectations. Anything you do over and above the customary expectation, you're not used to telling your wife that, look, you relax today, go out with your friends to that lecture or whatever it is. Mullah Ilyas is holding this amazing workshop. You go out for that. I'm going to look after the children. You don't usually do that. She's like, wow, what happened? Koi aur hai ya kya ho raha hai yahan? Right? Get beyond the suspicion, and it was like genuine. You've just deposited into your love bank balance between you and your wife. That's what you've done. That day you decide to make her a cup of tea. If you're not used to doing that, she's always making you make her a cup of tea. Because there's men here in front of me, I'm using a more male example, otherwise it works exactly the other way. Right? Alhamdulillah, I make my wife tea twice a day. It's very easy to do. I make it for myself. That's a little bit of my contribution. Both times a day I make the tea. But if you have to cook anything else, she does it. Right? But I make the tea. Right? Just to prove to myself I'm not that bad. Alhamdulillah. Allah Ta'ala accept it. It's just tea bag tea. So she doesn't like the other stuff. What do I do? Right? She got me onto this as well. So when I get a guest, then I get the proper tea. I get lucky with that sometimes. Anyway, so when you come home from work, or when a guy comes around, she will do something extra for him, relax him down, give him a little massage, whatever. You come back from work, you give her you bring some flowers. Over and above the norm. What you're doing is you're depositing into the love bank account. What's the benefit of this account? Kya fayda? The benefit is, just say, a day or 2 or 3 later, you have a little misunderstanding. Some issue. As it happens, the shaitan will not be able to aggravate that and manipulate that as much, because think, okay, we've had this little issue. Shaitan brings up like, oh, he must hate me. Oh, has an issue with me. He's probably looking at somebody else. It's probably that person from work. All these weird ideas just to create a bigger issue. If you have the love bank balance, it's like, no, but yesterday he did this for me. He can't hate me. It just helps to soothe that problem and just overcome it. You need to do that frequently and regularly. I talked about this once, and this guy comes up, he goes, Sheikh, I bought my wife flowers and she got angry. I said, why? Tell me. He said, because she's into flowers and I bought some cheap stuff. It's like, what kind of flowers did you buy me? One woman told me she got married to a guy and he literally bought her a ring from Holland and Barrett's. No, not Holland and Barrett's. What's the other one called? Samuel's. He actually sent her links for 3, like £9, £12 and £15. Like, is that all I'm worth? Like, he's so Sufi, bichara. Like, he even sent her a link, like, which one do you want? That marriage didn't last. It didn't last. So, look, if you're then think, okay, great, my wife likes flowers, so every Friday you go and buy some flowers. Same old ones. Is no longer going to be a deposit. A gift has to be a surprise element. It has to have attention and care. So you'll have to buy different flowers, different things that are useful, productive, and that provide things. That is a beautiful way of improving the marriage between you. Get some love bank balances. You can't just do lots one day and then forget it for 6 months. That's like saying that I don't have much time every day to brush my teeth because I'm always rushing out to work with a cup of tea in my travel mug. So you know what, Sunday, I'm just going to brush for 20 minutes. So I don't have to do it for the rest of the week. Chalega. I mean, that's probably harmful. You understand what I'm saying? It has to be kind of regular deposits, because this emotional, compassionate move of love and expression of love has to be constant. That is what gives the marriage, mashallah, amazing meaning, especially today. Marriages have changed. Before, people just had to stay together whether they liked it or not in some cultures. There was no divorce. That's not the Islamic way. That's just cultural way, right? It was very simple, straightforward. Whether good or bad thing is a different issue. But now women have their own money. They get helped. The laws are on their side for the women, for the children. It's just a whole new dynamic you have to work with. I gave a program like this about 4 or 5 months ago in Blackburn, and I had over 10 to 15 calls in the coming week about marriage issues, because it's a big issue. So I'm just covering the main issues. So I'll talk about 1 or 2 issues and then we'll open it up, inshallah. So these were some of the issues we talked about: anger and all of these things, money issues, in-law issues. The husband's responsibility in the in-law situation is that he is this non-biased, objective judge and barrister and arbitrator. He can't pass on everything he hears from one side to the other side and make them feel bad. There will be negativity. He can't allow that negativity to make him negative, because that happens. Your mother tells you something about your wife and you feel negative toward her. She's like that. Your wife says something that you don't know about your mum. Is like, you just have to be an arbitrator and try to reconcile, try to say good words to one another. You know what? I know my mum, she's had some issues with you, but she praises your, X, Y, and Z, or whatever it is. You can even be a bit generous and flexible with the truth there if you want to, as long as you do it in a way that you don't get caught, otherwise you'll never be trusted again. Because Islah Bayn al-Nas is a place where you can be a bit, what's the word for it? A bit generous with the truth. No, there's another word. Economic with the truth. Is that right? Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? But I'll tell you something. In marriage, if you do something wrong, and it's going to be found out possibly anyway, most likely, or even 10% chance, tell the truth. I'm telling you this from experience. Tell the truth. You'd rather be seen as, having done something stupid or whatever it is, and told the truth, than to have been found out later. Otherwise, trust issues are one of the biggest destroyers of marriage. You can't be trusted, then you will never be taken seriously, and very difficult to rebuild trust. In a marriage, especially in such a close relationship, always be open. Doesn't mean you have to reveal everything when there's no need, because that's just silly. That just creates sensitivity and other issues. But be open, especially when it comes to the fore and it's going to have to come out. Simple rule about that. Okay, last thing, a lot of marriages, they're suffering because of one issue or two issues. People will come and say, these are our issues. I just couldn't find a reason. They were all subtle, surface level issues. I'm trying to find what the underlying issue is. There's small petty issues, and you can't destroy a marriage on petty issues. The real reason is somewhere below. I just couldn't put my hand on it, and finally, after trying everything else, I said, do you guys, there's no kids here, do you guys have a decent, healthy sexual relationship? And that's when it came out that was the frustration. Look, I'm going to say it openly, there's a lot of men who are very, very selfish. Can we push the stream off? Because there may be children listening at home. Just for 5 minutes. Is that okay?
It's only going opposite.
Oh, it's only going there. Okay, it's not going home. Inshallah, then it's all right. If some children are there, that's their problem then. Right? Why did they come to a marriage program for? Just put hands over the ears. I'm not going to talk about X-rated stuff, come on. So you just have to be clear, because the Prophet dealt with these issues, and this is part of our tradition. Many men don't know how to satisfy their women. They're very selfish. They satisfy themselves. Women are frustrated. You won't believe, I've had 2 consultations in the last month, or 3, And it was really weird. I don't get these consultations often, but 2 or 3 women in one go. I'm telling my wife, I said, look at this. They just don't get fulfilled. One is because the husbands are just not sexually active at all. And they're going to commit sin, they say. I mean, themselves, they're saying, we're going to commit sin. I have to force myself on and so on and so forth. I don't want to get into too much detail here. But that might be a bit of an isolated case because most people are sexually active. These are people who are sexually active, but they don't know how to satisfy a woman. In my book, I've actually got a section on it where I tell non-married people to read just before they get married and not before that, right? But married people can read it. And it's in our traditions. Our ulama have read. There's hadith that are very clear about this. About, for example, foreplay, preparation, satisfaction. A friend of mine is given a simple excuse, and I'll just give it to you, right? It's an excuse, simple suggestion, which might be difficult for some people, but if you have a policy of allowing your wife to finish twice before you finish once, you will never have a problem. What does that mean? A lot of men complain, she's always complaining that I have to have a shower, I have to wash my hair. Why? Because it's not enjoyable. Why should they then have to go and take a shower all the time and wash their hair for nothing? They don't get anything out of it. They don't get anything out of it. So the idea is that if you're satisfying, they're going to be more than ready to go with you because it's worth it for them. They're getting something out of it. And women have desires. A lot of men don't understand. They just do their own stuff, they're done, and men can't continue once they're finished. That's just the weakness of men that Allah has created it. You do it once and you're done. Women can carry on. It's just their nature, that's their fitrah. Somebody has to say this, so I'm just going to mention it because this is the underlying problem in many marriages that is nowadays causing zina, to be honest. A woman called me and she's like, I went to the optician, I think it was the optician, one of these optician or dentist or something, and she's like, I'm frustrated, I've been frustrated for a long time, and now it's come to a head because I actually started having feelings towards somebody else and I don't want to go that way. What do I do? So simple, there's halal books you can read for this. You know, there are obviously haram things which you don't want to get to, but there are halal, books that are written on this subject now. As I said, I've got a chapter on it. Mufti Muhammad's got another book on it, right? But this is very, very important. If you want a good life, there's lots of studies about this, about infidelity and looking elsewhere and just frustration, and then it messes up the whole, they don't want to do anything else. And then if there's domestic violence involved in that, domestic violence, and then they want to get satisfied, then that is like a recipe for full disaster. Some people are domestically violent and then they want their hit, right? And the woman just feels like objectified. Is that all I'm here for? Just for your pleasure? And then some people justify that you have to be ready for me whenever it is. I want to clarify that. We've written a fatwa on this. That yes, that's true. But if she's sick, she's got a health issue, then the obligation doesn't lie there, because the Prophet ﷺ said that if they refuse and then the husband is upset, then the angels... Now obviously the refusal, he didn't say you must force yourself on it. There's no rape. I mean, I don't want to call it that, but there's no force mentioned as such. There's some texts, some of our fiqh texts that does kind of allude to that. But if somebody is sick, genuinely, not people who are just making up, like, I've got a little flu or something, not talking about that, right? Then the husband needs to take it easier. One wife called and she said, I just had a child, and I think it was a child, and no, it was another. He said, it's after the child, sometime after. He said he wants it 5 times a week. So I was like, oh, what are you feeding him, right? So men have to take it easy. Men don't understand women. A lot of the time what happens is that there's that one day in the month when she suddenly starts getting sensitive and says something that is complete. Yesterday she was fine, and then suddenly she says something like, does anybody know what that is? Now if the man doesn't know, you're going to be in trouble, because you're going to retort and get angry as well. It's PMT. Premenstrual tension. Some women get it more than others. Because of the hormone imbalance at that time, she might act uncharacteristically. Women go through a lot. This is just part of their makeup because that they need that for their child rearing. It's not a deficiency, but they can definitely help with vitamins and certain herbal supplements like evening primrose oil and a few other things, right? To assist. There's a lot of nutritional help out there if you have PMT or you have postnatal depression or you have, what's the last one? Menopause. Ya Allah, menopause. There are women demanding divorce. And the husband's like, I know she's got, there's leave it, let us deal with it. And mashallah, there's a friend of mine works in a chemist that have done a lot of research on menopause and what the deficiencies are. It's a certain vitamin and nutritional deficiencies that is created at that time. Women go through a lot of changes. If men don't know that, it's an issue. Men and women are very, very different. Men, when they have some issue, they sometimes just want to brood over it calmly and silently. Women, they want to talk about it. They don't understand. So the wife wants to talk about it and the husband thinks, no, not now, not now. Just hold her hand and just say yes, yes, yes. Just listen to her. And if the husband comes home from work and he's got some issue, what's your issue? I had some issue at work. Tell me about it. Later, he just wants to just unwind. She doesn't get it. She thinks like he doesn't like her anymore. And just leave him for a while. Men and women are very, very different. And if we don't recognize that, Ya Allah, men have to appreciate women for their femininity. And women have to appreciate the men for their masculinity. So be a man and be a woman. Otherwise, you're messing it up. The West is trying, in the West, in our tradition here, is trying to confuse the whole matter to such a degree that people are confused. And Allah Ta'ala protect us. Maintain the masculinity and the femininity. I really feel sorry for people who are confused about even what gender they are. My heart goes out that it is such a bad state to be in because you're so confused. Okay, let me stop here. That was a long session. I just had to get it all out. You can, we can either have a bit, 2-3 minutes of just relax, or we can start the question and answers. Oh yeah, we've got lots of question and answers. You've already sent me some. I've probably dealt with half of them right now, so it's okay. Have you got them printed out? Are these the same ones, or these are? Okay, chalo, that's not bad. So since these came out first, I'm going to deal with these. I'll dismiss the ones we've already dealt with. And if there's any more needed, you can inshallah ask. Should we just start or should we just give 2-minute breather? Yeah? Do you want to just stand up and sit down just to, you've been sitting for a while. So just stand up and sit down and, don't talk. Just so that it's a long time to... Allah khair kare, Allah afiyat de. Allah, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Problem with knees or? Allah afiyat de. Can you believe it? We're getting old now. We're getting old. Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay, as I mentioned, inshallah, we're going to try to take any question. And please, don't hold back if you've got a question that's been plaguing you, bothering you for a while. And I don't know how long we have. We'll try to do it quickly. But some of these require maybe a bit longer. But as I said, I've tried to probably answered quite a few of these, inshallah. The best part of marriage is perhaps the start and getting to know each other. So how do you keep that energy the same over the years so that doesn't become boring? MashaAllah, that's a wonderful question. I was asked the question that after 7-10 years of marriage, does the love increase? So anybody who's married, would you say the love increases? You guys would say that? I thought about it, and I thought the love doesn't necessarily increase because that initial romantic style is like very high, right? Like you can do no wrong at that time. So I think the way I want to explain it is it becomes deeper and more nuanced. The love becomes more detailed, more deeper and more nuanced. What do I mean by that? What love is that love is the energy that blinds you and deafens you to somebody's fault because you see their qualities. So the more you will live with somebody and they display and you get to learn their qualities, the more you will appreciate them, because you can only love someone because of their qualities. You don't love things for nothing. You love them for their qualities. If you do have this initial crush on something but they have no qualities, eventually that will fall apart and that will be empty. So what happens is that we don't know one another when we first get married. Unless you've been dating all the time, then that's going to fall apart very quickly, because there's no vigor in that. But anyway, so you learn one another, you adjust yourself, you compromise on certain things for them. They compromise on some things. If everybody stands their ground and doesn't want to move, it becomes an issue. Love is what's going to help you to negotiate all of those things and come to a place where you no longer are going to irritate one another, except seldomly. Because now you know what the other one likes and dislikes. You've adjusted yourself. They've adjusted themselves. They used to say X, Y, and Z before, and they discovered that you don't like that anymore, so they've stopped saying those things because it was just aggravating. You understand how it becomes more nuanced and more deeper rather than just increase? I was once sitting with an old Khalifa of, I think, Hakim Akhtar Sahib or somebody, and this was in an i'tikaf. He's about 70 years old and I was probably about 40 something, 42. He said to his son, who's like a bit younger than me, he said, "Have you called your mum? Is she okay?" I said, "Hazrat, ab bhi unki fikr rakhte hai? Like, you're still concerned about him?" He gives me a slap on my thigh and he says, "Mauli Saab," he said, it may not be the touchy intimacy anymore, but وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. And I think what he's trying to say is that it becomes that more deeper care and affection and that love. So that's what I would say. That's what I would say it is. Don't expect to have that same cloud 9 or 7 or whatever it is feeling that you get at the beginning. That's not going to last for too long. That's going to last for some people, it lasts for a few weeks, and for some people it lasts for about several months, and then it will be shattered one day. I remember the first time, it was about 7 months in, that we had the first little argument. And I was devastated. I was in iftar class in South Africa. I got married in 1 month. I was in long iftar honeymoon in South Africa, right? And I went to class and I just talked to one of the guys who married. He's like, "Sheikh, man, come on, man. What's your problem? That's going to happen. Don't worry about it." It's like, okay, alhamdulillah. You understand? So sometimes it lasts for a shorter time. Sometimes it lasts for a longer time. But it's just about dealing with a difference, dealing with challenges. That's going to happen in any relationship, by the way. Unless it's a one-sided relationship, abusive relationship, then there's no maza in that. Then you're just a dictator. It doesn't work. There's no enjoyment in that, right? So yeah, it gets more, it doesn't have to become boring. You don't need another partner. Well, some men do sometimes, yeah. But that's not the point here, right? Don't want to get into it. That's a different point. I don't want to open that point. But you can carry on and you can still appreciate your spouse even after 30 years, because that in itself is an appreciation. MashaAllah, she has served and been such a wonderful wife. He has been such a wonderful husband for 30 years. In fact, I've seen husband and wives where they see somebody else's issue, they come home and do so much shukr that we don't have that issue, right? And alhamdulillah. Anyway, how would you advise your wife to stay away from haram stuff she's doing so that in a way she does not become upset? I can't answer this question. It's too general a question. I don't know what haram you're talking about, whether it is haram or not, and how serious it is. I need to know what it is. So otherwise I can't answer your question, so that she does not become upset, or in this generation, as they call it, not make you seem controlling. Okay, first maybe just have a chat about it. I think one of the big things in marriage is communication issues. That's a really big issue, communication, how to communicate and bring up something. So talk about it. But again, I don't think I can say much more than that, because it depends on what the issue is. As the husband, sometimes you're going to have to be the head of the ship just to make sure it's right. So it just depends on, so maybe send a question again with a bit more particulars. What do you do with it's all from men it looks like. What do you do with an ungrateful wife who wants everything on the plate just because she had seen another couple have something we do not have? Maybe go and visit a few people who don't have that and get an appreciation. Let her listen to, if this is the case, then let her listen maybe to some good advice, advisory lectures on this, read some books on this, just basically teach some shukr. Just the chapter of shukr, just what is gratitude. And what is gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, it's very difficult. I'd like a very particular example to get more into this, but the main thing is I think it's just lacking, a lot of people just lack spirituality in their life. They have no shukr, they don't understand the concept of satisfaction and satisfaction with what you have. How should you go about to getting rid of your wife's friends? Is this from one guy or what? How should you go about getting rid of your wife's friends who speak bad in her ear and try manipulating her into making rash decisions? You become her confidant. You become her advisor. You become trusted to such a level. Show your wisdom, show your leadership, show your ability to make the right decision. Preempt these things. If you already know that this is happening, preempt it. And inshallah, win her over. So that I know couples where the wife will trust her husband more than her father. She loves the father, don't get me wrong, but she will rather go with what husband says because he's demonstrated that he can lead the ship. So maybe maybe it starts off because they've been very influenced. That's all I can say because I'm talking to you. If I was talking to the wife, I'd tell her something else. I'd stop listening to these friends of yours, do your own stuff. But I don't know if I'm talking to the wife. Maybe she is here because this guy is maybe wanting her to hear. So stop letting your friend fill your ear. What else am I going to say? Sometimes you get calls from somebody and the other person isn't there and they want advice, but there's nothing because they're biased already. So you're going to have to get somebody else involved. Right? But that's very wrong. Don't let your friends dictate your marriage. Simple thing. And sometimes your friends can be completely wrong because every marriage situation is unique. There's one woman, she told somebody that I know that she was told before she got married from her married friends that it's going to hurt. What? You can decide, right? It's going to hurt. And when she got married, nothing hurt. It wasn't that bad. It was very enjoyable. And they were making it sound like it's so bad. She had like all of these, major, what's the word? Anxieties about it. So people say their own experiences. It may not be like that for you. So ask Allah for assistance. I hear nowadays mother-in-laws can be quite evil, only nowadays, as well, and may attempt to speak bad behind your back. So how would you tackle that without creating a commotion? I can't answer that question. I don't know what the issue is. Why did you get married to somebody with an evil mother-in-law? Listen, you have to be very careful who you get married to. Right? One of the things you have to look at is the extended family. No marriage is between just two individuals. Anybody who thinks that it's just about me and her or him and me, and I don't care how our families were acultural, you're living in some other world. Nobody can divorce themselves from culture. Culture is part of us. We just have to keep the good part of it and get rid of the bad part of it. There's some people who say, I got literally a question, it was from Preston. I don't want to marry, I think it was from Preston, this one. I don't want to marry somebody from the Gujarati culture. I said, why? Because they come with baggage. Do you guys come with baggage? The Gujaratis here? You come with baggage? Of course you do, everybody does. Who do you want to get married to? A convert. Any converts here? Any converts? No? Well, anybody who knows, do they come with baggage? Everybody comes with baggage. Everybody comes with baggage. It's just a baggage you don't know, so you don't know about it, so you think it's better than your baggage. That's what it is. So everybody has good, and culture is something. There's a couple I know, they got married, and they said, we don't want Gujarati, Bangladeshi. I don't have anything to do with culture. I don't have anything to do with culture. They got married, and I've got this in my book, so it's not new content. But basically, within a few days, her sister had a child, and she had to go, because that's the culture. And that obviously creates unpleasant feeling in him. His mother lives opposite. They go to eat there. whether you call that culture or whatever. And you can't just go and eat her food. You're going to have to cook and take. She has a problem with that. I thought we're not cultural. Man, you're in cuckoo world. There's no such thing as no culture. This culture is part of it. And any part of culture which is halal is fine. Any part which is haram, it's a problem. And alhamdulillah, Allah has put us into a situation. We have multiple cultures. We take the best of all of them. Right? I mean, what is Gujarati about me? You know, aside from the food that I might like or I can speak the language, what is? I mean, my turban and hat are Turkish. This is Afghani. This is Afghani. My watch is Japanese. My socks are British. What's Gujarati about me? We're living in a new reality, and we have to, our identity is the best of every culture and the predominant culture we're from. We have Moroccan food in the house. We have Mediterranean food in the house, right? That's become normal. 100 years ago, it would have been a monoculture. That's not the case in a globalized place where you live. You take the best of every culture, bismillah. Because no culture has it 100%. Just remember that. So, mother-in-laws can be quite evil, may attempt to speak bad behind your back. So how would you tackle that? It depends on what they're saying. It depends on why they're saying it. And it depends on what kind of communication you can have. That's how you're going to respond to this. So again, these are very general questions. Okay, having an affair and cheating has become prevalent among us. So I think this is from one person. It's just very negative, right? How should one, it's correct, but it's just, how should one act if their spouse does so, and how can one save themselves from doing adultery? Allah, such general question. So number one, do you guys have a healthy relationship? Are you willing to go and do everything halal that's allowed? Sometimes that's the case. I had one case of when she's on menstruation, they thought they can't even touch. Right? They can't even touch. And he gets really frustrated. And I said, but you're allowed to satisfy him in other ways. As long as you avoid navel to knee, you can do everything else. You're like, you serious? They didn't know. So there's an ignorance in this regard. Some people are a bit too prudish without realizing that it's actually allowed, some things. So number one, in this kind of a case, I would say that especially in the hyper-sexualized world that we live in, be willing to do everything that's halal, within adab, within some adab and etiquette, right? And basically just be available and be attractive and try to do the best that you can. That's all pretty much what I can say. And just if there is a person who has perfect at home, but they're constantly looking elsewhere, which happens, shaitani influences in the hypersexualized world that we live in. One dua which is very beautiful for that, and it works for many other things, is the dua, Allahumma kfini bihalalika an haramik wa aghnini bifadlika amman siwak. That dua is actually for repayment of debt and for prosperity. But if you look at the meaning, it works here very well. Oh Allah, suffice me. Make it sufficient for me, the halal away from the haram. So the halal that I have, make that satisfying for me away from the haram. So that means the business that you have, the job you have that is halal, that's going to satisfy you so you don't have to worry about going in the haram direction. Your spouse is going to satisfy you so you don't have to go in the haram direction. Otherwise, if you're working in a mixed environment, that's just recipe for disaster. Already, it's difficult. That's very difficult. And I mean, sometimes you're helpless. That's the only job you can get. I'm not here to give fatwas about that, but those are difficult. Just think of it. If the husband and wife are working, most of the time people are going to get dressed for that, to go to work. You have to look smart, right? I've had calls from women, I wear abaya, but can I just wear loose clothing instead? So why would you want to do that for? Okay, loose clothing are halal, but I know where this is going. Then it's like, can I put a bit of makeup? Who for? Do you know that lipstick, red lipstick, for example, psychologically, this all came out when the whole Me Too movement, became a big thing several years ago, that the psychologists are very clear that when women become aroused, their lips become more red. So if you're just putting artificial lipstick on, you're already showing arousal. It becomes more attractive. And it's like, no, you can't do anything beyond that. There are places to wear makeup, and there are places where you don't do that. So it's difficult. And that's the freshest 7 hours of the day where they've gone to work. And you're working in, mashallah, mixed environments. You are, there are challenges at work in terms of certain projects you have to finish. And then when you finish a project with somebody, you feel a sense of affinity with them, high fives and all the rest of it. You discover other people's qualities during that time. And then you compare them to what you have. And maybe there's a quality here that they don't have down there. And it's just, wow, Allah Ta'ala asan kare. It's tough. And then you come home and you're knocked out and tired. And you take off all of the clothing, and you just, and then it's like, there's no freshness and no vigor left. I don't know what the response to that is. There is no response. It's just keep praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make it as halal as possible. What if you just don't love your wife anymore? I heard many of times couples stay together for the sake of their children without feeling a thing for one another, or even the sake of wondering what people might think. How do you avoid such? Like, are you asking, which part are you asking? Like, how do you avoid that? I've already talked about it. Get my book and read it to get a healthy marriage, and inshallah you won't have to worry about that. And if it's already like that, find a way to rekindle. I've got a lecture of that online. I mean, I can't cover everything right now, but on Zamzam Academy, on our channel, I've got like 20 lectures on this. One of them is how husband and wife can do a project together. That's a really good idea. If you can't find anything where you can't find any affinity with us, do a project together. Go and volunteer for Ummah Welfare Trust together. Right? Go and do something else. You will see your husband and wife in a different light, because they're going to need to do things out of your normal zone, and you'll start, inshallah, appreciating. You'll have to rely on one another to do those things. Go and do something together. Right? Can I have some other questions? Is there any questions from the women? These looks like they're all from men. Oh, it's on the other page. Don't you guys have a question? Yeah, go on, you ask, and then I'll come back to this.
So what if the parents don't want the son and daughter-in-law to live with them, but the son wants to get married and can't afford his own accommodation, and chooses not to because it's financially easier to live in Paris?
So the question is that the parents don't really want their son to live with them, but the son wants to get married, and then he wants to live with them because he can't afford it. So maybe talk to the wife and live for as long as they can and make some effort and then get out as soon as possible. There's no magic here. It's just a simple answer that I can give. I'll do the rest of them. Okay, the ones that I've dealt with, just mark them off. Yes. There's no magic about this. It's just, this is practical stuff. Right? So the thing is, number one, if you can't find a wife that's willing to do that, then you'll have to find one that's willing to go through that. And women should relent. Women should not insist, But then some husbands, they say that and stay there for the next 20 years, right? Because they're just lazy, or they're just losers. They just want it easy. They want to just be pampered by their parents, right? And just live off them, right? They need to wake up and do their own job and pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy. So essentially that's what it is. And if you can't find, then you'll just have to maybe wait until you can get a house, unless you can just get a wife that can do that, that can live with you. Yes? If you marry for deen and it didn't work out, then what criteria? I think there's a big misunderstanding of what deen is. What was the deen you look for? Tell me that. You see these questions, somebody's like, what was the deen you look for? Somebody who prays a lot? Somebody has a big beard? Somebody has a niqab? Somebody who goes out in tabligh? What was the deen you look for? And in the hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ said that you must succeed and be a winner with the deen, what did he mean by that? So now let's do this. I didn't cover this already, but out of all of the deeni departments, religious departments, which department is the most conducive or appropriate for marital relationship? Akhlaq, character. Namaz has its own benefit, but that's not directly related. Fasting, all of these other things, right? It's character. And the Prophet ﷺ said so, I'm the best of you to my wives. And in hadith he said, I am the best of you in character. That's how he dealt with 9 wives at once. Subhanallah. You understand what I'm saying? That's exactly what this whole lecture was about. When I talked about anger and sensitivity, this is all about sorting out the character. I'm glad somebody brought that up. So that is that you look for somebody with character. Somebody who just covers properly and all of that, that's good. But that's not character only. Character is behavior, is conduct, how they deal with one another, what they've been taught at home, the tarbiyah of how to deal with people. That's why we need to get our children to be prepared for this. Okay, we might be forcing our daughters to get prepared for this by teaching them they better know how to cook and clean, they better know how to cook and clean, as I said, and a few other things like that. But what about our guys? There's guys who get married, they don't know how to pay a bill because their dad's been paying their bills, even their phone bills. They don't know how to tighten a screw of something that's coming apart. They have to call a plumber or an electrician or something. They don't know how to welcome somebody. You got these 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, somebody will come to the house, like, who are you? Like they just don't know. Assalamu alaikum, uncle, how are you? Sorry, my father isn't here, but is there something I can help you with? That kind of, we need to teach our children all of that, how to talk to people, how to welcome a guest. Yes, what's next?
Can a woman demand not to live with in-laws?
I've already answered that question. Can a woman demand not to live with in-laws? Yes, she can. But again, I don't think that should just be the first thing that you insist on. Because your in-laws might be wonderful, and there's many women, they love it because their in-laws are so helpful. They're so nice people. And it helps them because they get a lot of support. So don't think that living alone is always a horror story or a nightmare. It might have been for your friend, but it may not be for you. Every family is different. So don't dismiss it just as a matter that that's it. Especially if you can't find somebody who is independent, who is going to live separately and who meets the bill. I'm going to give you another advice. Some girls, they refuse to get married. They're 19, 20, 21, 22. No, I don't want to get married yet. 23, 24. They come 25. Okay, I want to get married now. Do you know what's happened? All of the good guys that would be your level, they've already got married. And it's interestingly, it was a phase where people got married later. I'm hearing now that people are getting married now earlier. And now the pool of possibilities have just decreased and they have to wait longer. That's why I'm going to tell parents that if you find somebody for your daughter and she's 21, 22 years old and there's a decent guy that kind of meets them, and the girls, our daughters out there, get married. Because you're going to want to get married suddenly one day. Overnight, you're going to want to get married. You're going to see your friends getting married or something like, I want to do this as well. And it's such a natural thing and you've delayed it so much that you're then going to get frustrated. So I said, especially with girls, get married sooner than later, once you become of age. You understand what I'm saying? Because the pool of people gets less. And this is with anything, even with men. The older you get, the more particular you become, the more refined of what you want, more critical about what you want and more distinguishing. But the pool of people is less. Most people have been taken. So it's working against you, and then there's such a thing as an expiry date. So you don't want to get to your expiry date. So please, just get married sooner than later. Haji.
These days, coffee shop dates are the norm. We know this isn't preferable, but what is the etiquette regarding this? Because this person could get potential.
So I don't know what that means. You mean like just meet in a coffee shop? Why can't you meet in a house? I mean, coffee shop would be okay if there's somebody else at least on the next table that's within them. Just for a boy and a girl to just meet in a coffee shop with nobody else, that's not a good idea. I'm not going to necessarily say it's completely haram, but it's not a good idea because there's too many other factors that are going to cloud and possibly come in the way of your intellectual decisions you will take. You don't want any emotion to come with it. And some of the stories that I've been hearing about these kind of encounters, they just don't inspire a lot of confidence. Ji bhai.
So, a prospective partner, but they have defined clinical conditions, OCD, anxiety specifically. How do you handle that in terms of the impact that you're going to have on them? They can have on you?
Right. So let's just say that your potential spouse has some mental health issues, whatever that means, OCD or whatever. Well, number one, you have to go into the in an educated way that, look, this is it and it's going to be an issue. Are you willing to deal with that? So you better be willing to deal with that. Read up on those conditions. You have to be equipped with a lot of knowledge because you don't want to mess it up on small issues, right? And there are going to be issues because they have these kind of mental health issues. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a lot of assistance. And then I would say focus on their positives, because everybody has positives. Because if you then start focusing on that, shaitan will make you focus on that. You're just going to destroy your marriage, even if you went into it with a lot of courage. Keep focusing on the right. Consider that this is a khidmah of the deen. Consider that I'm doing this for the sake of Allah, to be nice, because there's a huge reward in bearing patiently your relationships, or the hardship and the challenges and aggravation that comes from the other spouse. Huge reward for that. In fact, spiritually, sometimes it can get you higher than your dhikr can. There's one shaykh, he said that I have these 20-year-old guys with big pagris doing a lot of dhikr, and I have some women who are bringing up their children and dealing with their husband, and they are much higher in their spirituality, doing less dhikr. Not to say you must abandon your dhikr for that reason, but all of this struggle is good for your heart, as long as you're prepared and willing to go with it, while asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for assistance.
There are many Islamic dating apps. What's your advice on using these?
What's the advice on using Islamic dating apps? Look, an Islamic dating app, and they're not all the same. Halal shops, there's the HMC approved ones, and then there's some other ones, and there's lots of other ones that say halal. So halal dating apps, some of them I've heard they're decent, and some are not so decent, and some are outright problematic. Okay, so I haven't checked too many of them. I know there's a sunnahnikah.com if anybody knows about that, because I know the guys who run that, but I've never been on there. So I don't know how it works, but I would say that I'm not going to write off an app. Why? Because our communities have become very disjointed and splintered and individualistic. So before, the aunties and the uncles who used to do that for free, they had the algorithms in their mind, and they could just figure you out and figure that out and just connect. We've dismissed those people, or they don't feel like assisting because they get blamed for no reason. So you're just going to have to pay for it on the app, because the app's doing the uncle's work. So as long as it's a halal app and there's no side haram issues in there, well, there's nothing wrong with using that. Has anybody had any success with the apps, by the way?
Everyone's got success in Preston with Munir Uncle.
MashaAllah, who's that?
The guy who's invited you.
Serious? Yeah. MashaAllah, so I can send people over to Preston. Where's Munir Uncle? Oh, MashaAllah. So you got the algorithms and you can just feel it. There you go, that you go. MashaAllah, amazing. I'm glad you still have that.
Regarding divorce, someone mentioned it has demoralized me. I've lost confidence in the family.
Right, very good question. Some people have gone through some bad experience like divorce. So they think it's going to happen all the time. Major fallacy, major problem, shaitani idea. He just don't want you to get married anymore, right? So I remember once a kid called me, a young guy, 20-something, 21 years old. He's from a disjointed family. He's had bad experience. And he's like, I don't want to get married. There's so many women, they've had a divorce, they don't want to get, they hate men now. Some hate men, some think it's just going to happen again. And there's some guys who hate women now. Completely wrong. So I was at a function with about 10 families. Sorry, 10 guys. It just happened to be 10 guys. So as I was talking to him and explaining to them, look, don't reflect and conflate what happened to your parents, that you're going to have to do the same thing. Unfortunately, a lot of people do that. Don't do that. And number two, what I told him was that I'm going to give you an example of the 10 people that I'm just randomly sitting with here when you called. It's not a special selection of people, it's just 10 people. I said, out of all of these, I know all of their story. One of them is divorced and he's not married again. Okay, let's start with the worst case scenario. Then the next worst case scenario is a guy who got divorced and then he got married again, and now he's got like 5-6 children and they're completely fine. There was incompatibility with the first one, second one, mashallah, they're living very well. All the other 8, they're happily married with children, one marriage only. So what does that tell you? 80% was completely fine, 10% was slightly problematic, it didn't work out first time, and only 10% was a problem. So why are you thinking that you're going to have to go wrong and it's going to be messed up for you? So what I will tell these people is, it doesn't have to be that way. Just educate yourself further, learn from your own mistakes if they were your own mistakes, and just be careful of what you get into this time. There's a whole study about this, that some women and some men, they have a certain problem where they always looking for a certain personality. Some people, men, have a savior complex where they're always looking for vulnerable women, and they can't help them because they don't have the psychological knowledge to deal with it, but they feel like they need to do it that way because of maybe what they saw in their own family. Sometimes it's actually related to what happened between their father and their mum and dad. And what happened is, usually single families, always a domestic abuse where the father has been a really messed up individual who's domestically abused his mother. He had to step into his father's, and he felt like he's the savior of his mother. So he's always looking for women to save. I know it sounds kind of crazy like that, but there's a lot of studies about that. And there's some women who are always looking for a father figure because they never had a father figure. And father figures are not marriageable figures all the time. You understand what I'm saying? That dynamic is wrong. So maybe go to a Muslim counselor and try to figure out what your issues are so that you can look for the right person. And inshallah, second time, with a lot of dua, you'll get it right. Inshallah.
Another question. So divorce has happened and sort of the wife is holding the kids at ransom.
Malicious mother syndrome. That's what this is about. There's a divorce, and unfortunately I know like at least 10 people who are suffering because they don't get access to their children. What happens in a divorce, and one of the reasons for this is that our community is not helpful for divorced mothers. Divorced women have a taboo. Some cultures more than others. In some cultures, a divorced woman cannot marry again. A woman who called me, she's from a particular Pathan tribe, not a particular Pathan tribe. So I'm like, why don't you just get married again? Her daughter called me, and then I spoke to her mother, had a divorce, whatever. I said, just get married again. She said, you don't understand, we're Chachi. We're a particular tribe. We can't get married again. I said, that's just completely un-Islamic. They can't get divorced, and if they get divorced, they can't get married again. Like, what a persecution that is. There's lots of cultures like that. So this culture, you just have to go against that wrong aspect of your culture. Marriage is a sunnah, get married. Right? Get married. Well, what else was the question? I lost the question. Holding the children at ransom. So what happens then is that it usually happens with women, it can happen with men, but most of the time the law supports the women to keep the children. They can make up any excuse. In fact, I've had one case where the guy spent £20,000 behind a lawyer. He might have got access, and then she just comes up with some accusation, and then he loses it again. So one guy, his wife in court made him out to be an extremist. Says he has books on jihad. It was a general fiqh book that had a chapter on jihad in there, which every fiqh book has. And the courts, they just go with the women. That's why I know one guy, he got divorced when his wife was pregnant, I think. He has refused actively to have any part to do with that child, even though it's his child. Why? He's seen too many cases where then the wives use it against and to persecute. He's like, I just don't want anything to do with it. It's a tough, I don't recommend that because it psychologically messes you up, I think. But that's his way of saying, if I don't have a relationship, I can't be harmed later. I just don't want anything to do with it. It's a bad, lopsided law in this country. I don't have a response to it. I can just make dua, but there's too many people like that. And where did it come from? It comes from a thing of the women of essentially trying to punish. But what they're doing is they're actually just harming the children, because children need both sides. They need the male and female vibe to come in a balanced, to be brought up in a balanced way. Anybody who's brought up by a single mother or father only, there's some imbalance there. They're going to be deprived of something. A simple study. So don't think that you can, that you're benefiting your children by doing that. And alhamdulillah, I've seen many cases where ultimately when the children get, as long as the father was a decent guy, they will come back. Right? They will come back 25, 26, whatever. Ultimately, they will realize what I've done wrong or what my mother has done wrong. Yeah.
Two parts to this question. The first part is it permissible to delay a nikah for any reason if a suitable partner has been found?
If a suitable partner has been found, then I would say as soon as possible, as soon as conveniently possible. You don't have to wait for the uncle who's still in Pakistan or India. Just get married. Seriously. You don't wait for anybody in marriage. Unless it's just like a week or something, then that's fine. As soon as you can conveniently do it, otherwise you're wasting your time. It's just going to drag on. And the other problem is in many cases, they start talking and then you get too comfy with one another. You let down your guard and your formality. Then you literally reveal your weaknesses and then they just say, forget it. There's nothing sticking you together yet because you're not married yet. Now, this could happen after marriage, but that's fine. You've made an investment in marriage. I'm going to deal with those weaknesses. I'm going to have to deal with them now. I've taken the plunge. But before marriage, this is the problem with dating. You find out something. Because remember, when you confront somebody for the first time, you meet, you're at your best behavior. You're only displaying what you think are your good points. Some people think their good points are they're actually bad points. Some people think their bad points are good points and they do some crazy things, right? But you're displaying your good points. But as you get more casual, you start revealing your true self. You might think that's a good thing. The problem is that you don't have any glue to stick you together yet. So then you just say, forget it. Let me try another person. And everybody has defects. So you don't get the perfect person. Yes?
And what should be the delay between the nikah and marriage?
What should be the delay? It's whatever's convenient, as short as possible. Whatever, as quick as possible. I really do not support any marriage where the guy's still studying or she's still studying and they do an agreement or they even have the, what do you call the other thing they do? The engagement, and then they make them wait for a whole year. That's just really, that's persecution. Right? A parent should understand that we're living in a hyper-sexualized world. Just make a nikah. I'll tell you something else. What I did with one family, actually a relative, for some reason they couldn't hold because they couldn't find any holes or whatever. I said, that's fine, just do nikah. We did the nikah in the house, just 4 or 5 people, nikah. They're married now. They're married, it's just that we're not told the whole world about it. So at least they can talk halal, they can do what they want, halal. Then, and you'd be surprised by this, then 5, 6 months later when it was the day, we did another nikah. And that's completely permissible. In fact, I don't want to get you paranoid, but Imam Shami rahmatullahi alayhi, who's one of our big jurists, Hanafi jurist, he actually recommends that you refresh your nikah every, I think he says every month. Don't start doing that, right? But the reason he says that is sometimes people utter crazy things. I'll give you an example. The previous late Mufti of Darul Deoband, Mufti Nizamuddin A'zami, rahimahullah, my grand teacher. There was a couple that used to come to me with problems. One day he said, you know what, main aapka nikah wapas padhata hu. I'm going to do your nikah again. So I felt it was a bit strange because it's not a cultural thing to do, is it? He did the nikah again just with, 2 witnesses and it's just a refresh. And they stopped coming to him. After a while, he met them, or they met him. One of them, the husband must have met him. And he's like, how are you? He goes, oh, we're fine now. Then he explained, he said, the reason I did your nikah is because I noticed from the way you speak, I think, if I remember correctly, you sometimes will utter blasphemies according from, something that might take you out of Islam. Some kufri statement without realizing. That's broken your faith. It's broken your iman. It's broken your marriage. But your faith, you don't even know because you're not educated about these things. You don't think it's serious enough. Your your faith becomes refreshed by the next time you do namaz or say your kalima la ilaha illallah. That's sorted, but your nikah isn't. So you're in zina without realizing it. And there's no barakat in that. There's no blessing in that. That's why I did your nikah again. Now I don't want everybody rushing to do another nikah. whenever I have mentioned this, at least one or two people have come and said, can you please just do our nikah? And there's nothing wrong with that. Just don't get overly paranoid. Go to Mullah Ilyasab. How much do you charge? Right? Alhamdulillah, our people don't charge. I got a call 2 weeks ago and saying, can you please tell me exactly how to perform it? What are the obligations? I said, why? Because I'm getting like secret nikah. I said, no. We can't afford the imam. It's like, okay, what's the minimum? So 300 pounds or something. I'm not, it's one town, right? In our brothers, it's not in, usually our tradition, we don't do that. I said, this is completely wrong. I said, Alpha, if you go and find side, they shouldn't be charging you at all. Maybe, sometimes the masjid charges or whatever, they shouldn't be charging you at all. I said, if nothing else, let me know, I'll find you somebody. But no, you're not going to do the nikah yourself. I don't want to get the nikah into the hands of people. Like just casually, just gallo. Although that could happen, it's not a problem. But at least, have it done in a guided way. So, what was that a question about? I sometimes miss the main question I was talking about. What was the question?
The time between the nikah and the
Yes.
nikah and the rukhsat.
So I'm here to, if you do want to do that, let them do the nikah privately. Close people can know. Then let them do a big do with a big nikah, bigger sheikh. If you want to, no problem. You can refresh the nikah, it's not a problem. You understand what I'm saying? But don't get paranoid about this. G. Sorry, there's a question up there and then I'll come back. G.
You mentioned that a man has said something blasphemous.
The man or the woman, either of them can blaspheme, yeah.
So nikah doesn't take place. Is the marriage still valid then?
Sorry?
Is the marriage valid?
No. This is after they were married, then they uttered something and it broke the nikah, broke the marriage.
Yeah,
So the nikah is, there's no longer nikah. You have to refresh the nikah. समझ में आया? बुई चुनाई. Okay.
So next question. Before marriage, after the viewing between the potential bride and groom, who needs to convey the acceptance of marriage first, and what is a good time frame to give an answer? Example, immediately after the 10 days of istikhara or close to
Okay, this is so ritualistic, right? Question is that, let's just say there was a proposal sent. How many days should you give the response? Do you have to do 7 or 10 days of istikhara? Who has to give the response first? Make it as casual as possible. There are some customs with this that usually the guy gives the answer first, that okay, I accept, and then she gets the final say yes or no. But in the world we're living in, with the way things are just so complicated and nikah needs to happen, it can be anyway. Don't feel bad about the other way. But I think it is still a good idea, let the guy say, right? My advice to people who are getting married, who want to get married, don't go to see somebody and discuss with them until, listen carefully, until you know everything about them that you can know without having seen them. Meaning anything you can find out through friends or acquaintances that you can do research on beforehand. If all of those things are fine with you, then go to ask if they're happy to go. Otherwise, what's going to happen? You go to somebody, you talk, and then you say no, and then you've broken a heart. And then you go to somebody and you've broken another heart, possibly. Why you do that? Especially if you're breaking it off because of something you found out later that you could have known before. You can't know everything before, so if you do find out something later on, fine, break it off. But this is what I did. I only saw one, and I got married, and this is when I've done advice, and that's what they done. One shot, done. Right? It usually works that way best. That way you don't have to go around, shopping in so many different places. And keep forgetting what the question is.
time frame.
Right, the istikhara, right. Who needs to give the answer? So usually in the custom, it's seen as the man giving the answer first. And I think there's some reasons for that. But there's nothing wrong with that reason. But you can give an answer first if you want to. And now I think more so, before the woman would not be able to go and ask, or their family wouldn't be able to go and ask. But now, alhamdulillah, it's happening more often, and that's completely fine. For the women, if they see a potential suitor for somebody, don't go yourself necessarily. I mean, you can if you want to. But otherwise, send someone and say, would you be interested? There is this girl. You can keep it neutral if you want. So just try to get it done in any decent etiquette way as possible. Also istikhara. 7 or 10 days of istikhara is not necessary. The hadith does not mention 7 or 10 days. The hadith just mentions do istikhara. understand the istikhara. Istikhara just means asking for the best, asking for goodness. That's what you're doing. So the way you should deal with istikhara, and I've got this in detail in my book, but the way you should deal with istikhara is that I am doing everything I physically can do to find out if this person is right, and I'm contemplating it in a rational way, but I'm doing istikhara on the side to assist me. And the way it works is that, inshallah, as you do your istikhara, your mind will become more clearer about which way to go. And then you go proceed on that. Don't just wait for a dream, because if you're not into dreams, you're not going to see a dream. And if you see dreams all the time, then you'll probably see a dream. But most people don't see a dream. And they feel like, I'm not got an answer yet. Istikhara is asking for the goodness in it. So keep asking for that. My Shaykh, Hazrat Mawlana Yusuf Sahib Rahmatullahi, he told me to do istikhara from the time that I was looking to the time I got married, which was about 3 months. Do istikhara every day. Why not? I'm asking for goodness. So you don't stop istikhara. You can just carry on reading the dua every day. You understand? So it's not like this strict, rigid procedure. It's an assistant to it. It's just dua. That's what it is. That's what you're doing in istikhara. You proceed rationally with what's right and wrong, what you want. You do istikhara, you do mashwara, and then inshallah you say Bismillah and go for it.
So sending pictures is a norm nowadays. What do you think about?
Sending pictures, I think, look, I just the other day somebody told me that I see the rationality behind sending a picture if they're somewhere else, so that you don't have to have a full-fledged meeting. So if there's no other way to see, then I can understand sending a picture on, what's that? Temporary picture, those timed pictures, one view pictures, and hope that they don't record it or something, right? Because sometimes that is a big thing. Now, if you have to have a whole meeting to see someone, and then you just, as soon as you see them, you don't like them, what's the point of the meeting? You still have to go through it. I can see the point of that. Do not send nude pictures or reveal. And I tell you why I'm saying this, because I've heard too many stories, right? And maybe this is another country that is more advanced than us and more crazy than us, but they have communication, and then suddenly they'll send a revealing picture, thinking that's going to inspire you, and you're a religious guy. It's like, what the heck is she doing? Don't do that unless you're looking for al-khabithatu lil-khabithin wal-khabithuna lil-khabithat. Like if you're looking for an unchaste person, then you do crazy things like that. However, I got a woman who called, and she said that the guy that we're talking to, he's asked me to send some nude pics. Am I allowed to do that? I was just shocked by the question. It's like, why didn't you just scream at him and say, like, what the heck are you doing? Get out of here. That she actually even asked because she thought, let me just find out. I think this sounds wrong. That's what gets me even more worried. That it seems common enough that maybe it's okay. It's not okay. And then, believe me, you say no to that guy, he may even reveal your picture everywhere else. You shouldn't even be taking pictures like that. You shouldn't even be taking pictures like that. Allah hifazat kare. I don't know what's going to come of the world, man, today. The way it's going on. No, that is not allowed to send nude pictures. Even if you ask for it. Even if you're at the last stage. Tell me to wait. Let there be some mystery, man.
What if both parents aren't happy with the marriage, but the two people want to get married?
Right, so what happens if the parents are not, both sides, parents are not happy, but the children are happy? So look, it depends now. If you're just being stubborn, you just want to get married to this guy and it's ill-advised, you know that it's not a good, but I love the guy and you just this, that and the other, then I would say work on yourself and get out of it. Because ultimately, especially if you're the girl, you're going to have a big problem, because if he dumps you, who are you going to go back to? I've had too many horror cases like that. However, if you're old, meaning you're getting older, and your parents are just unreasonably difficult and stubborn, and they want you to find somebody specific from a particular caste or whatever, and you're challenged by your desires and need to just get this part of the journey done, then in that case, make some mashwara at that time. And I would say that in some of these cases, it may be advisable just to get married and then hopefully make dua that your parents get happy with you afterwards. You know your parents more than anybody else. They might be stubborn guys, even after 20 years, they won't agree with it. I've had a case like that, right? But otherwise, a lot of parents, they eventually relent, especially if you're very kind to them and he or she does some really good stuff for them. So there's not one answer, but I would say that I have advised people to just go with it because they're like 30 years old now. She's 29, she's 32, and they're just being difficult for no reason, and it's just getting difficult. Yes?
Well, without sort of truth anchor, how do you deal with a wife who, when you bring something up to her, you've got some brownie points in the love bank, you mentioned earlier, and she's generally quite defensive and combative?
Look, I can't answer for other people, right? Because if you're saying, if somebody's saying that their wife is very defensive and combative, right? The only thing you can do is you can try to educate her on that and make dua for her. And that means that you can't educate her because you're suspicious. Like, we're biased. So they won't listen to anything we say if that's my wife's problem, for example. I need to get somebody else to talk to her. I need another source that she can listen to. So maybe I'll get her to, or somebody to bring it up, maybe one of her friends or something, in a very clever way, so that she hears it from somebody else. Then maybe she might wake up to it. But there's no other way unless we try to sort that out, or we make dua and it's so powerful that it changes her. That's why رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. They say is a magical dua. We don't believe in magic, but our Lord grant us from our spouses, that means husband, wife, wives, whatever, right? And our descendants, our children descendants, those that will be the gladness of our eyes, and make us the imams of the righteous ones. Ulama say that if you make that dua, inshallah, and do your best effort in the right practical, constructive, productive way, then the issues you have with your spouse, either Allah will remove them and they no longer will be there, or He will diminish them in your sight so they won't bother you anymore. A lot of the time what happens is all of the good points have become covered and blinded by the focus on the negativity. I know people who had issues with their spouse of what they would consider big negative issues, but alhamdulillah, after just learning to manage it, they work very well because they focused on the positives, while the negatives are still there, but it doesn't bother them anymore. So that's what I would suggest, to try to do islah of it through somebody else.
How do you know the person is the one? Because there's always a worry about the next guy.
You're never going to know the guy is the one, right? Unless some angel comes and tells you. And that's as long as you authenticate that it is an angel and not some other shaitan or something. So there's no way you can tell that. You have to proceed on your best intuition with istikhara and mashwara. Otherwise you can never know 100%. And that also means that you can't refuse. Because again, the pool will just get lesser and lesser and time is working against you. So don't be just rash and jump into anything, but be considerate. But if you're a perfectionist or you're overthinking things, then you're going to be suffering.
Does long-term separation constitute to divorce? Marriage never expires. Even after 50 years of no meeting, it doesn't expire. You have to actively say, I divorce you, or a judge has to break it. So no, it doesn't expire just like that. And one thing interesting I'll bring up to you is that everybody hopes to get to Jannat, right? Jannat, there's no single people in Jannat. La uzuba. There is no bachelors in Jannat. In fact, Jannat and paradise has not been designed to be single. It's designed to be with your spouse. Ma'a azwajihim. It's always that discussion. So you will be with your spouses in Jannat, whether you hate them in this world. Okay? Seriously. You're going to be with her or him. I'll let you deal with that. So if you don't, there's somebody who asked me, like, I don't want to be with them. Well, divorce. Otherwise, you're going to have to be with them. But the good news is that it's going to be wonderful in paradise. It's going to be a fresh new start and an amazing one that will never get old or weird or messed up. So don't worry about it, because nobody has pains in paradise. It'll be absolute enjoyment. Absolute enjoyment. So just trust in Allah, carry on, and enjoy paradise.
The last chapter of my book is husband, wife in paradise. I felt I had to end it with that, right? And people learn about divorce because it just comes out sometimes wrong if you don't know what it is. And then you tell the sheikh, I don't know, I'm not very practicing. Well, that's your problem. Because divorce is done if you do a divorce. Gee, is there any more questions left here? Yes.
Should we get married legally or
Should you get married legally or illegally?
in the UK?
Yeah, look, there are benefits of doing it legally. I would tell women they should do it legally for sure, because otherwise they could just get dumped overnight and they have no recourse. There are some laws of, I don't know what they call them, the common law wife or something. If you lived for a certain number of years together, you still have some rights and so on. But that's better to do. It's probably a good idea if you're not intending to divorce, because they create a lot of hindrances in divorce. So I would say that if you have been divorced already and you're not sure about this guy, but he's the best option or she's the best option, then you may want to just try it out with just a nikah. That if something does go wrong, you don't have to go to some long paperwork and process to get rid of it. So there could be some benefits in that. But usually it's probably better to do, I don't know, I'm a bit half-half on that. But for some people it's beneficial, especially for inheritance purposes. Then it's clear-cut, wife will take over everything from the husband if he dies, or husband will take over everything from the wife if she dies. You don't have to prove anything. There are benefits to it, but I don't know which way to go with that. Jibai.
Also, based on what you said, would you advise a prenuptial agreement?
Well, if you've got a lot of assets, then it's probably a good idea. But in this country, as opposed to America prenuptial agreements are binding. If you have lots of assets and you made an agreement that he or she can't take my stuff, but in this country, they're not supposed to be binding. There was a case several years ago where it seemed like it's going to go in that direction, but I don't know where it is right now. So I don't know if that prenuptial agreement is going to benefit or not. Talk to some lawyers about that before you do that. If that's only worth it if you have, what do you mean by prenup? Is that for finance issues, assets, or what?
Yeah, the current climate where...
Well, that's only if you've got lots of finance assets and so on. But as I said, they're not favorable. The courts were not favorable to that, so they'll still give them half. But I'll tell the women that you're not allowed to take that, because a lot of women are doing that, and it's not allowed. It's not yours.
So Islamic thing, they're not allowed?
No, definitely not. They can only take whatever the husband's actively, if it's been the husband, that they've actively given them already, then the husbands can't pull that back. And just having a name on the property doesn't become theirs, or whoever it is. A lot of people say, oh, but her name's on the property, or my mum's name was on the property. That could be just done for tax purposes. It could just be done for whatever other reason. So that does not necessarily constitute ownership.
And you're differing here between, say, legally within the UK and Islamic law?
Yeah, when I say legally, I mean legal UK law to the Islamic law. Right, are we done with the questions?
That's it. So, just one from the women's side.
Yeah, go on.
My husband always thinks it's not my fault. My husband always thinks he's right, and it's impossible to reason with him. How do I deal with such a person?
I think I've already, no, have I? Yeah, so my husband always thinks he's right, and it's difficult, what? To reason with him. It's just like the other question you asked, right, about the wife being something. It's just, you're going to have to get them to understand that you're not always right, and your marriage could be much better if you are able to work together. Otherwise, you're always celebrating alone. Nobody else is enjoying life. You just have it your way. It's not, but the wife can't explain that to him because she's too involved. He doesn't trust her. So somebody else has to explain that. And it might take a while because he seems like he has a narcissistic behavior, right? If you bring that word in. A lot of dua, but if it's getting beyond control and he doesn't listen to anybody, then the only way you might be able to make a difference, but then that's a gamble, is you take a stance with some very specific options. But that could end up in a divorce or separation. But is that better than you carrying on in that life? That's a decision you have to take. So it's not an easy judgment. It's not an easy solution. But are you willing to just carry and do sabr? Or it's unbearable now. It's creating this kind of stress or depression or whatever. then I don't mind losing this in an effort to try to make it better. There's no easy answer to this. Do you have a ta'weez or something, Wallah, for those kind of situations?
Usually, Hazrat Rahmatullah used to say that every day recite Surah Rahman daily once, and Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim 100 times after every first salah.
So every day recite Surah Al-Rahman once, and Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, how many times? 100 times? Daily after every fard prayer, 5 times a day, 100 times Ya Rahman, Rahim. That hopefully will invoke so much mercy from the merciful and compassionate one that inshallah was samajh jayega. Try it out. It's worth doing that before you take your other stance of like, that's it.
Just one more one. Men in reality want women to work and bring money even while on earth. This is the hidden truth. Some threat, if you want to live separate, then work. What to do?
If you want to
Live separately then
I only want my wife to work. I don't ever take any money from her, never taken any money from her. I find that unmanly to do. She can give me a gift if she wants to, that's okay, but never expect her to do anything. But I want her to work because I think she can contribute. She's an alima, so that's why I want her to work. But if somebody wants to work because then they can contribute to the house and then they can take more, and she doesn't want to work, you can't force her to work. A man can't force his wife to work. I mean, that's a simple answer. That a man can't force his wife to work, and if he wants to do it so that it's an unmanly thing, man. It's an unmanly. There was a woman, she's a niqabi, and she's like, her husband wants her to work, even if it's a mixed environment. Wants her to work because he can't find a non-mixed environment to work in. It's just like, that's kind of weird, man. He can't find a non-mixed environment, so he wants her to go out and work. I'll tell you another thing. In England, our reality is very different from our forefathers in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and other countries. So as I said there, the communities were such that the women had lots to do. Right? They would sit together and bring up the children, clean up, and there was always something going on. They were very close to one another, all the relatives living together, weather was decent, lots of panchat to do. Whether it's a good or bad thing is a different issue. Now, our women, the men usually go out to work anyway, but our women, after their children are of an age where they're going to school, there's a routine, children, madrasa and everything, and they've done the housework in 1 hour, they got several hours of the day where they're doing nothing. And there's a huge amount of depression going on with that. They don't know what to do. So either they're wasting time watching something silly or useless. So that's why I encourage women over a particular age of their children to find a hobby, a volunteering position, go and study something, go and help something, or do a home-based business even. Because otherwise you're going to get bored in life. The more useful thing you do, the better. But otherwise do something to keep your sanity, because here the houses you don't necessarily live close to one another in terms of families. You might not like your neighbor, you can't always go to your neighbor's house. It's just boring, the weather's bad. So get something to do. And otherwise you're going to go crazy. So do something. Halal, productive, useful, yes.
Just touches on what you said. Anybody's had a disappointment, divorce, or nikah not taking place, on a rational basis, you said 8 out of 10 is successful dinner. But women don't take it that way. They're impacted on an emotional.
Yep. Right, okay. So if women or men are so psychologically impacted by a divorce or something, they're not going to just look at statistics. It's not that simple as I made it out to be. If they are feeling really bitter and they just can't go and do some counseling. And that leads to the next advice. Anybody looking for a decent job? Become a counselor. Really, we need so many brothers and sisters. We need a lot of counselors. Decent, religious, who understand the culture and the religion, become counselors, because we need that. There are so many mental health problems in our society, especially among divorcees. Now I know it's illegal in this country, but one of the responses to that is a man takes care of more than one woman in a halal way. And that obviously, right? But women aren't willing to do that either. The culture's not allowing that. Otherwise, that would sort a lot of issues out. If they just, in my words, if they just take care of another woman in a halal way, right? Because you can't legally marry. That's illegal. And then there is stigma attached to divorced women, which needs to be sorted out. I know several women who've been divorced and who are just crazy. Because nobody's there to help them. There's not enough counselors to help them, and the culture doesn't do it. So we need that to happen. And they need to keep themselves busy. They need to keep themselves busy and do something about it.
So before marriage, potential bride and groom have met.
Sorry? Right, sorry, just to finish off. If there's a person who has a sister who's in that position, or a daughter, get help for them. Somehow convince them to get some help with the psychology, because they won't want to do it themselves because they don't know what's wrong with them. We need to help one another. If you've got a neighbor or something, get some help. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, so before bride and groom have met and they're going to get married, to the parents, they can't facilitate the next steps. Can the siblings take over, to help?
That's too general. What's the next step that
the
day?
parents are ill, they can't.
Well, of course. If for example, there's a potential bride and groom they've met, parents can't do it, then let some uncles step in. If there's no uncles as well, then they can take it, they're allowed to take it in a formal way without getting too informal and casual. Otherwise, there's going to be other stuff that happens. So yes, they can. It's halal to do it that way. But I would only say in that particular circumstance.
Just following on from that, you have no one, you have no parents.
If you have no parents, then find some local uncle or the Imam Sahib. Mullah Ilyas will help you, and Munir Sahib helps people as well, apparently. There's going to be somebody, but otherwise, as a last resort, you can take it directly. But I wouldn't suggest that because there's just too much emotion that comes into that. But yes, you can do that. It would be allowed. And I want to clarify something. A convert woman, she's looking for a wali. She doesn't have a wali. And even in the Hanafi madhab, your father, we call him wali, but really when he represents the girl at the marriage, he's actually acting as your wakil technically, agent, representative, rather than your wali. That's why they take your permission. So you then commission him, appoint him as your representative. So in the Hanafi madhab, for any mature adolescent woman, she is represented by somebody rather than forced into marriage or just married off. Their permission is necessary. Okay, brothers. Okay. Yeah. It's always good to have a wali, but for, you mean a divorcee trying to get married? You don't technically need it. Because in the Hanafi madhab, even a first marriage doesn't have to be, wali is not necessary. Hanafi is very casual with that, very discretionary with that. It's just good to have somebody in between, but it's not necessary. Jazakallah khairan. We end it. Mullah Ilyas will do dua so I can relax a bit.
Jazakallah to Hazrat Mufti Sahib. I'm sure inshallah in the next, he did say 2 weeks or 15 days, there were so many emails. I'm expecting from Preston probably the next month there'll be so many emails. But alhamdulillah, with the many questions, we weren't able to get across. We were conscious with the time. Hazrat Mufti Sahib has brought the book with him. On both sides, the books are available at £10. You can't sell something in the masjid. All right, sorry, I apologize for that. And is there any other announcement? No? Okay, just make that one.
Okay, so as I said, we can't have covered everything, and there may be stuff that's very particular to a person that couldn't be brought up in a general gathering like this. As I said, get help sooner than later. Go to your local imams who you think, you have access to, and get that. And if anybody wants, I've got a line, it's my public line, it's on zamzamacademy.com. It's a public line. I'm going to be around until I think Wednesday afternoon, so the phone's going to be on for that. Any decent time you can call me as well, right? I don't do emails, I don't have time for that, so you can just call and we can discuss something. But otherwise, just go to your local, but get some more counseling going on, right? And the books that I will suggest is the marriage book. I've already mentioned that. I've mentioned the sexual etiquette book, and there's another book which is called Imam Sha'rani's Code of Companionship. I think it's very important for couples just to learn what we need to do for our friends or colleagues or spouses or companions. Very, very beneficial. Okay, we do a quick dua and then Allahumma anta salam minka salam tabarak ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Allahumma ya hannan ya mannan la ilaha illa ant subhanak inna kunna min al-zalimin jazallahu anna Muhammadan ma huwa ahluh ya ghaffar ya fattah ya sattar ya hafiz ya salam ya latif ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Ya Allah, have mercy on us. Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, have mercy on us. Ya Allah, have mercy on everybody here and those who are listening and our entire ummah, especially our brothers and sisters who are suffering in the world. Relieve them, Ya Allah, relieve them, grant them their dignity. Oh Allah, strengthen our marriages for those who are married. Oh Allah, stabilize these marriages, make them a source of blessing, Ya Allah. Make them a wonderful environment for our generations to come, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, make them and grant pious children, pious offspring, pious progeny. Do not ever let us see a bad day with any of our descendants until the day of judgment, Ya Allah. Those who are not married, oh Allah, grant them righteous, suitable partners. Oh Allah, righteous, suitable, and grant them much love, affection, just like you gave to the Prophet ﷺ and his wives. Ya Allah, assist us and make us true Muhammadis in this regard. Oh Allah, bless all of those who've attended. Bless those who have assisted. Bless those who have organized. Oh Allah, bless those who are helping the situation to try to get people together. Bless all of those who are trying to do Islah. Bless our imams. Bless our committee members. Oh Allah, bless all of those who are making an effort in any way, shape or form. Oh Allah, make this a source of sadaqah jariyah. Oh Allah, allow this program to be an accepted one, a blessed one, and a productive one, and allow it to do a lot of Islah. And oh Allah, allow us to get some good help and allow us to be productive and helpful individuals. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifuna wa salamun al mursaleen walhamdulillah.